Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Reap the Spoils. I'm Mark Sullivan.
I'm Delilah Lugo.
I'm Jason Kwasnicki.
If you hear my voice, if it sounds a little deeper, that would be because I've been sick for the past 3 weeks.
Damn.
So
Oh,
enjoy it.
I thought you finally hit puberty.
Wow. No, I was trying
to think of some pithy thing to say.
That
was lame.
I got sick with a symbiote. A symbiote
Oh,
infected
right.
me and made my voice do all sorts of funky things. I got really angsty too. I walked out of a restaurant and started dancing. It was weird. It was a weird time in my life.
Oh, I'm so glad that didn't happen.
Delilah, what game are we talking about today?
Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, despite the Sam Raimi Spider-Man 3 joke I just made, we're talking about Marvel's Spider-Man 2, the Insomniac Games developed video game.
Where there was no dancing.
No dancing whatsoever. At least not that I saw. Reap the Spoils is a semi-monthly spoiler cast where we pick a game or a video game related thing, and we play it and or experience it. And then we come back here to this Discord voice channel and talk about it with each other and talk at you guys about the story, the gameplay, everything the game has to offer. We spoil the hell out of it. So if you have not played Marvel's Spider-Man 2 for the PlayStation 5 Sony Computer Entertainment System, I highly recommend you pause this episode and go play that video game before you listen to us spoil the whole thing. And if you haven't played the first Marvel Spider-Man or the midquel, Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, I recommend you go play those as well and listen to our episodes on them, because we did episodes on both those games.
Yes.
Way back in the day, early in the Reap the Spoils pantheon.
I would say archives.
Archives, that's a better word. Thank you, Jason. I knew we kept you around for a reason. So yeah,
I was like, these are our episodes a goddess that we make sacrifices to.
What can I say? We make a godly product here at Reap the Spoils. We're putting out these holy spoiler casts for you to digest and listen to. Anyway, let's get on with it. Are you guys ready for some information on Marvel's Spider-Man 2, the info block, as it were?
Just as an editing note, you can clip this out. You should insert the Monty Python and get on with it.
Oh, jeez.
Into the when you edit it. All right, and cut. You can cut that.
I'd have to find that soundbite. All right, info block time for Marvel's Spider-Man 2. As I said, Marvel Spider-Man 2 was developed by Insomniac Games. It was directed primarily by Brian Intihar and Ryan Smith. They both also were co-directors on the first two Spider-Man games, developed by Insomniac, not like the first in existence. That would go all the way back to the 80s or 90s. This is obviously a sequel to Marvel Spider-Man that released in 2018 and Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales that released in 2020. And this game, Marvel Spider-Man 2, released on October 20th, 2023 for the PlayStation 5. That's it. That's all I got.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Cool.
And it's not obviously a sequel because the PS2 one was called Spider-Man 2. I don't think there was a Spider-Man 1. It was just called Spider-Man 2 because the movie was Spider-Man 2.
Well, there was a Spider-Man 1 game on...
Was there really?
Yeah, there was a PS2 Spider-Man 1 game.
I thought it was just the Spider-Man 2 one. All right, my bad.
No, I think there was, right? Or we got to live fact check this now, because I'm pretty sure I remember.
You don't gotta fact check. I might just be an idiot.
I totally have to fact check it because now I'm curious. All right, there's a Wikipedia page, list of video games featuring Spider-Man. And we're scrolling down. Yeah, there was a... Oh, wait, no. Sorry. That's the wrong Spider-Man. Oh, yeah, there was a Spider-Man game released in conjunction with the first film that released on the PlayStation 2, GameCube, Xbox, Windows, and Game Boy Advance. Clearly the superior version of that video game, I'm sure. Play that on the Game Boy Advance. And yeah, there was of course, famously a Spider-Man 2 video game in conjunction with that film as well. There was a Spider-Man 3 one too, but I hear that one's kind of like the movie, kind of questionable. Um,
Let's hope the game doesn't follow suit.
yeah. But anyway, we're not talking about Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2, the video game. We're talking about Insomniac's Marvel's Spider-Man 2. God, that's a lot of prefixes. All right, you guys ready to jump into the game?
Yeah, we're starting with the ending.
Yeah, a final warning. If you haven't played Marvel Spider-Man 2, please pause the episode, go play it, and then come back to this show and listen to us spoil it. Are we ready?
Yes.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, I say let's dive into the ending. I feel like there's a couple questions I wrote down here, and I think they're all, decent conversation starters with regards to this loaded ending. So let's talk about Norman going to visit. Well, actually, let's talk about Norman in general. Let's just talk about Norman as a man, as a
As a
father,
man.
as a potentially future goblin folk. He's
Yes.
totally this is totally teasing for Green Goblin.
Yeah,
right?
he said G serum.
Yeah. It took me when he said that, it took me a minute to realize what he was talking about.
Yeah.
I thought it was like a Resident Evil virus or something.
It does sound like a Resident Evil virus. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we got that.
Obviously, if they decided not to go with him, off the bat. So obviously they're building to it.
Yeah. And they teased it in the first game too, in the section where you're at when you're in his lab in his apartment building, you can find prototype pumpkin bombs like sitting on his desk or whatever.
Yeah.
It kind of made me think that he had already been Green Goblin at some point, and clearly that's not the case. This is all building toward him becoming Green Goblin.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I wish they didn't spoil right at the beginning of the game that that's not what was going on with Harry. So then the symbiote, because they spoil right in the beginning of the game that the symbiote is what he's using to kill Harry. I wish they had left it a mystery.
To be fair, they'd been teasing that since the
the
first
end credit scene. Yeah.
No,
yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
It still would have been cool to have that mystery, but it is what it is.
Yeah, but I mean, besides like the G serum statement, him wearing like a green shirt almost throughout the whole game was kind of indicative of that. I love how they play with the shirt, like the real life casual shirt colors in relation to whether someone has a symbiote or not and things like that.
Yeah, they do that with Peter. He's got like a black evil looking turtleneck. It's like when he's at peak Angry Pete.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good observation. I don't think I put together the green sweater or anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, and like he's also Norman's also teasing that the G serum, like the whole point of the G serum is that it's an alternative cure for Harry's sickness versus the symbiote.
Right.
Now I'm a little hazy on the details with Hobgoblin. I don't think Hobgoblin and Green Goblin are related in any way, but this being a different, universe, this being a different continuity,
yeah,
could they be teasing
made
for
a lot of drastic changes to typical canon? So,
well, I mean that's kind of Marvel's whole shtick, right? Having a multiverse, it allows them to have different universes to then play with different plot elements and not affect any singular canon.
I think technically right now, I might be wrong about this. This is kind of not even Marvel's; it's Insomniac's Spider.
Well,
that's why
Marvel has a designated Earth number for this for this universe.
I didn't know that. I haven't read.
Yeah,
I haven't read Marvel comics in over a decade now.
Well,
so I know they've done a lot of multiverse, They've added a lot of Earths since I've stopped reading.
Yeah, and Insomniac does have its own. So I like I said, I know I could look up the number real quick, but
So there's a side mission that we'll talk about later that reveals a character that's actually connected to the Spider-Verse movies.
Yeah, yeah.
Also has the multiverse thing going on. It's all very confusing.
Yeah, I wish they wouldn't. And there's other Marvel stuff in here that I wish wasn't, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, they're basically connecting all of them. which is kind of cool.
Yeah, to be clear, this is Earth 1048. That's Insomniac's the PlayStation Spider-Verse
Gotcha.
is Earth 1048. So that's where all these games take place in. And that's what enables them to change things up. So that all being said, do we think we're gonna get a Harry and Norman Gobbo team up in the next game? Or do you
Yeah.
think the G Serum? Oh shit, Delilah's just immediate yes.
Well, I mean, I think the main focus is going to be Green Goblin. I think he's going to be the main villain of Spider-Man 3 just because he's like so important in all of the universes, right? As a villain, much like Venom and Doc Ock, right? But I do think that he's going to try and do something when it comes to like reviving Harry, which, Harry can't be Green Goblin. He was already Venom. That would give him too much too
Okay.
much power, right? So
Yeah,
they would have to try and do something to keep Harry
I
alive.
actually don't think Harry is going to be Green Goblin. I mean, they're obviously going to be using the G Serum on him, but I think ultimately it will be Norman who is
Oh yeah,
the Green Goblin.
no arguments here about Norman being Green Goblin. I'm just wondering if you think Harry will also be a goblin of some sort, whether
I
they
think they'll
decide.
probably
He
try
might
to
try.
fit in a redemption arc for him in 3. I
Okay.
would think that would be like an obvious thing. I would also probably imagine that Doc Ock, or I should say Dr. Octavius as Spider-Man may play a major role. They might try to do, if you guys are at all familiar with
Oh, a
Spider-Man lore,
superior Spider-Man.
superior Spider-Man, yeah.
That could be
Especially
interesting.
given the way this ends with Peter Parker, it would be a reason to bring him back, so to speak. If for those who don't know, Superior Spider-Man, Doc Ock takes over Spider-Man. Like his mind is put into. I forget exactly how it worked, but basically, Doctor Octopus becomes Spider-Man and uses much more violent, lethal methods to deal with the Rogues Gallery. It's weird. It's a weird story,
But
but
it's
And
a pretty
implementing
popular
that.
one.
it is, yeah. It's
Yeah.
one of the more it's kind of like the Venom, like Venom arcs happen all the time in Spider-Man. They reuse that same kind of, which we see here obviously in this game, but
Yeah.
they're used all the time.
I guess that kind of goes into my next question is Octavia Norman goes to Otto in the raft to visit him and try to get the identities of the Spider-Men from Octavius, and he says he refuses and says that he's like preparing for his final chapter.
That's why I think
Um
they're going to do Superior Spider-Man.
so okay, you think
Yeah, I
that's
think
what the
that's a
setup
good
is.
theory.
Which could be interesting because if Norman goes Green Goblin and Octavius assumes the role of Spider-Man, they hate
Because
each
they
other.
yes, exactly.
They
That's what,
have that rivalry,
yeah.
so that could be interesting. That could be interesting. Um, but I also don't know how I feel about it being like, well, I don't know. I guess I'm making an assumption by saying like if the third part is like concluding a trilogy, I feel a little odd about the trilogy concluding with Octavius taking over Peter rather than Peter
Well,
himself doing
I'm
something.
assuming the story would be Peter has to because as we'll get to, Peter quote unquote retires at the ripe age of 25 in this
Yeah.
game. The idea would be is that's the mechanism by which you force Peter to come back.
Well, okay. That could okay. I see where you're going with that.
It's gonna be a
I'll,
lot in one game.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, as we'll get to in this game, this game is a lot in one game.
That's
Yeah.
true.
And the first one was like that too. I mean, we
Yeah.
had and we'll talk about I kind of do want to talk about the 3-act structure at some point where we talk about the kind of the structure of this game versus the first one. But like the first game fit in a lot of villains and fit in a lot of like kind of traditional Spider-Man story arcs in a pretty small package, comparatively considering the breadth of what it tries to fit in. This game does that too. I don't know that it's as clean as the first game was.
Nope.
But
Yeah, this is a 10-hour game that is 3, arguably 4 10-hour games smushed into one.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. I want to finish diving into the ending here a little bit more. Talking about who will be kind of focusing on in the next game. Jason alluded to it. Peter kind of retires. He t- hands the torch over to Miles and says, I'll help you, I'll guide you, but I want you to take care of New York while I move on a little bit with my life to do other things. Um, how did we feel about that whole shtick? Jason
I
seems skeptical.
I think it was uh, um a good build up considering we got the spin-off Miles Morales game, so it's not just like the torch is being passed without any kind of background or substance or building of character. But at the same time, if you're gonna call it Spider-Man 3, I feel like in some way we have to end with Peter. So I think he might intend to retire, but at the end of the day, especially if like Doc Ock and Green Goblin are involved, I think he's gonna have to come back and do his part.
Yeah.
So like I barely remembered. I remembered vague plot points of what happened in the first game. It kind of like just escaped my memory. I don't even remember what happened in the Miles Morales game.
Sounds like Jason needs to go listen to the Reap the Spoils
Yeah, I did.
episodes.
I started going back and listening. But the point I was trying to get at was I actually watched a video. I had completely forgotten that Aunt May died, so I went and watched a video and kind of
Jeez.
and that sequence actually was really good. Like I was I was listening to our episode. I was pretty harsh, probably too harsh on the first game. But that sequence of Aunt May dying in the first game really encapsulates Spider-Man in a nutshell.
Yeah.
In that he has the cure to save her, but then they won't be able to replicate it to save all the other people.
Needs of the
And
one versus needs of the many.
it's the sacrifice that he sacrifices the things we take for granted every day, family, career, friends, all that stuff, to be Spider-Man. Driven kind of by his guilt. Everybody knows the origin story. His guilt that his Uncle Ben's death was essentially his fault. Well, not his fault directly, but like because of his lack of taking responsibility. Um, and this ending with Peter, it was confusing because he essentially does what he seems to want to do in the beginning with Harry. It kind of sets up like, hey, you could go and have this other life, and you would think the arc would be, kind of reaffirming that no, he needs to be
He can't.
Spider-Man, but he just basically does what he could have done at the beginning of the game with Harry. But that's not even like the biggest thing. The biggest thing is it's just like it's a lack of understanding of what makes Spider-Man one of the most enduring and popular superheroes. The fact that he always makes that sacrifice and he doesn't win like in his normal life, and he does so he can be Spider-Man, and he's just going to retire and take a break for a while. It's like, okay, it's not very heroic or Spider-Man-y.
I mean, it's a fair point. It he's
And
been
it's
Spider-Man
just weird
for
because as I alluded to, or as I just said, like in the first game, that one scene with Aunt May dying like perfectly encapsulates what Spider-Man is. Whereas
right.
like this ending seems to not get it at all.
It kind of goes on the flip side, right? Like, well, he's I don't know. I think it's still somewhat the same, like in just kind of a roundabout way. Like made that sacrifice in the first game to let Aunt May die so that he could save how many more people, countless more people. And in a way that was honoring her because that's what she would have wanted him to do, right? She wouldn't have wanted him to cure her so that everyone else couldn't be, but she could live. Um and this game kind of ends with him honoring Harry and the promise that he made to him. What the starting back up the Emily May Foundation, also in a way honoring Aunt May as well by extension. That's the whole point of the name of the foundation, and also honoring Mary Jane and giving them a chance to have more of a life together because he's had to make the sacrifice shirking her for so long and putting her in countless danger or endless danger, several of which moments happen in this game. So it's like I see what you're saying, but at the same time it's not like he could have really made that sacrifice before or couldn't have made that couldn't have not made that sacrifice before. Do you see what I'm saying? Because he was the only Spider-Man. Now he knows there's Miles out there. Miles can handle, especially with Craven now gone, Miles can handle things on his own. If he has to dip back in, the option's there, but if he has the chance to have a life of his own, he's gonna take it, and I don't necessarily think that that's it's not like a selfish it's not entirely selfish thing is essentially what I'm trying to say. It's like
I
he's still
yeah,
trying to
I
honor other people in his life that he loves and cares about.
I understand what you're getting at, and yeah, that makes sense from that perspective. But like again, the perfect Spider-Man, the most popular Spider-Man stories is he sacrifices, you know, not
Oh,
honor. I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. In my mind, the ending to Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2 is perfect, precisely because Mary Jane says to him, "Go get him, Tiger," after she, you know, professes her love for him, and he jumps off to go be Spider-Man because they understand they're never going to have that perfect relationship at home, but they fill the gaps for each other, especially now that she knows that he's Spider-Man. And, he can have that one thing in his life, which is what Mary Jane always was in the comics. Again, we'll get to Mary Jane. Mary Jane is not Mary Jane in these games.
oh,
It's a completely
jeez,
different character. Um,
it's a different universe.
exactly. But he doesn't he sacrifices those things that we take for granted in our everyday lives, like I just said, family, friends, career, things that we think are mundane, but you don't realize how important they are until like you have that responsibility of being Spider-Man. um
Yeah, I don't think it's
it's
that.
just yeah, I just don't like that for Peter, but it is what it is.
Think it's that he's like unwilling to continue making those sacrifices. I think that's something he's definitely going to continue grappling with, even though he's aiming to retire. I just feel like he's trying his best to pass the torch, and I think ultimately he's going to fail at that because he's going to need to come back. And I think he only passed the torch because things were chill, right? When things are going to pick up again, and I'm pretty sure he's Mary Jane's gonna understand. He's gonna understand like he has to do what he has to do. Like I don't think this is a core part of his character, the retirement phase. I think it's just something he wants to do.
I would hope not. Yeah, and to be fair, like it's not like he said I'm done. Like he just said I'm taking a break. But it's still like to me, it just feels like it goes against the spirit of the original character. But hey, if this is what they want to do with their universe, like you said, Mark, this is Insomniac's universe.
Right, and Delilah's right, and that's kind of what I was getting to, right? Like the big villains that were terrorizing New York were taken down. Peter finally has a chance to breathe, and MJ took a big step in her life too, right? Like we could talk about it right now. The whole game was her trying to chase an editor position at the Daily Bugle, and it's also kind of weird that Jameson left the Daily Bugle prior to the first game, and now he's back as editor in chief again for some reason, while also still doing his talk show. I don't know. It's kind of an odd choice. Um, I'm surprised they even let him back, to be honest.
Well,
But
it's probably because they put such a focus on Mary Jane working there. They wanted to have Jameson there as like the asshole that's constantly yelling at her.
yeah,
Basically, it's basically taking up traditionally what is Peter Parker's role, where in his normal life he works for the Bugle.
yeah. Well, I mean, he did. They do establish. This game does establish that he used to work for the Bugle.
Right.
You even I don't know if you did. Did you do the side quest, Jason, where you play as a young Peter trying to deliver photos
Yes.
to
Yes. Yes.
yeah. So they do establish that and kind of give us a little bit of backstory. Which, by the way, those side quests really cool. I really like the ones that kind of put you in someone like the one where you play as Haley, and you are essentially made deaf. That was very very unexpected and
Creative.
very creative. I really enjoyed that. Jason, did you do that side quest out of curiosity?
I did not do that. I didn't find out about that one until after I finished. I did go and watch it, but like
Okay.
in terms of those side quests generally where they try to like I I guess I just have the exact opposite take where like I
Oh,
was
okay.
here for a Spider-Man game. I was already getting agitated every time they forced me to not play Spider-Man and play as Miles Morales, and now they're doing these
Well,
like
Miles Morales is
these
Spider-Man,
like
Jason.
these like Last of Us, not even Last of Us, like the what's one of those more like movie game type deals where
Yeah, like
like kind of just moving the character forward, pushing forward on the stick and letting the
it was
story unfold.
you did more than that, but you know.
It,
I just felt like it in like the game already has such severe pacing
That's
problems in its main
that's
story that those side quests just like dragged it down
I mean,
even worse.
that was a big complaint about the first game too, right? Like a lot of people did not like the segments where you had to stealth as Mary Jane or stealth as Miles. Um until Miles became Spider-Man and it actually had the same like or a similar toolkit that Peter had, so it was kind of like okay,
Like
now it's
in
bearable to play as Miles, but like
in
Mary
theory,
Jane.
the content of a lot of those side quests, especially the ones that go into like Peter's past and like this, not even just the side quests, but like the Coney Island sequence or the high school sequence with Harry. These sequences where it gets much more like push forward on the analog stick. This is for story purposes.
Mhm.
The actual content of those is fine. It's just it could have just been a cutscene.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough.
I feel like
Um
it drags
That's
out
like a
too long.
very like Sony thing to do, like create this like and to be fair, Coney Island looked really cool, so I loved it actually.
yeah.
But like having that moment where you like interact with like different things in the environment and then it creates like conversation points with characters is a very Sony thing to do. They did
I
it in like Uncharted and I think The Last of Us as well.
I will say like Insomniac is the studio that I feel um what's the word I'm looking for? They kind of almost are apprehensive to go the route that all Sony first party studios
Right.
go in that route that Delilah's describing because you're
And I don't
totally
want
right.
them to
I
because
don't
that's
want
what
them
makes
to
them
either.
that's what makes them unique is how much I don't want to say more gameplay, but
It's more
it
fun.
tends
Their
to be
games
more
are
gameplay
more fun,
focused.
less cinematic for the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the Spider-Man games, even the Ratchet and Clank games that they put out, I don't think any of them are perfect, especially not Ratchet. I have a lot of qualms with Ratchet post PS2, but at least they try to make sure that if the controller's in your hands, you are engaged and not forced to do a lot of slow walking and talking, right? Walking and talking in video games happens in a lot of Sony first party games, and it rips control away from you and forces you into a really slow segment that you might not really want to do. And it's not like Spider-Man doesn't do that, but it does it a little better and keeps you engaged a little more than the usual walkie-talkie section. At least in my opinion. And it sounds like you guys kind of agree with that too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I love that Coney Island section. I think that's actually when the game started to pick up because prior to that it was just a lot of like character building.
Yeah, it was
And
a kind of a slow build before that.
yeah, I thought it was fun. I don't know. And living in New York City certainly has an impact, which by the way, Coney Island is not that cool
Yeah,
in
I
real
was gonna
life,
bring it up. I
full of a
did.
lot of junkies.
Yeah, I was gonna
FYI.
say like this is very much like a modernized. So the comics originally come out 60s, 70s. So like that's back when people actually went to Coney Island. So it's almost like a weird modernized version of a 60s/70s idealized version of New York.
I mean, it's like
Um,
it's not
Coney
like
Island is essentially a museum at this point. And yes, there are functional rides and you can go on them, but like it's like rock. People talk about going to Rockaway Beach. Like nobody goes to fucking Rockaway Beach. Like syringes and glass bottles all over the
I mean,
fucking place. Like
it's not like they're gonna have this like extremely pessimistic version of New York in their
No, I
happy-go-lucky
know.
Spider-Man
I know,
game,
I
guys.
know.
Like
It's just it's jarring as a New Yorker as well. Like
there
Delilah
is
said, nobody like you don't go to fucking Coney Island. Like there's a
you
homeless
you
guy, all
you
these
yeah,
homeless guys
well
hanging out there. Like
here's the thing about these games is there's a single homeless man and he is the nicest person in the world.
Oh man, that side
yeah,
quest
Oh,
tore
we're
me
gonna talk about that
apart.
side quest. Jesus Christ.
no, but
Um,
I'm not trying to say like it's not a knock on the game's quality. It's interest. It's actually kind of interesting how they take that idealized version. Even New York back in the 70s was Like this is like the Taxi
Gritty.
Driver. Yeah, this is the Taxi Driver era of cinema, and that's a pretty realistic depiction of what New York was like at the time. But Marvel Comics kind of idealized it, and it's interesting to see them take that idealized, clean, polished version of New York and bring it into modern day with like cell phones and smartphones and shit.
Yeah. All right, we still have one more thing to talk about with the ending, guys.
Yeah. What? Silk?
Yeah,
Indy?
Silk. I had to look this up. So let me tell you my thought process. Earlier in the game, when Rio told Miles, I'm dating someone. I want you to meet him, and that kind of went away until the very end. I'm sitting here thinking like, she's totally dating Miguel O'Hara, right?
Oh.
Like this is Miguel O'Hara is gonna come through that door at the end of the game. It's gonna be Miguel O'Hara. They're setting up for a Spider-Man 2099 multiverse thing for the next game.
He did, just
And
not here.
yeah, well, I mean, kinda, yeah, and we'll talk about that. But like,
Yeah.
he introduces himself as Arthur Moon. This is my daughter Cindy, and I'm like, who? And the first thing I Google is Arthur Moon. I find nothing, and then I Google Cindy Moon. It's like, oh, this is another spider person. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know nothing about her.
yeah. I mean,
Look, at least it's not Gwen. All right, they could have gone that
Hey,
direction.
I,
It
I
could
don't
have
want
been very.
I
but
don't want
here's
either
the
of them
thing.
because that means in the next game we're gonna get 3 stuffed characters in to play as.
I'm
Well,
I'm hoping that they give us a standalone for Cindy to just give us some time
see,
with her, like they did with
I
Miles.
have a different theory about a standalone game that I'm going to share with you guys in a little bit. But yeah, a Silk standalone game could be interesting, an interesting way to kind of actually introduce this character and not have to spend like a whole like story act in the next major game, the next like numbered game to establish who she is. Um but it is interesting. Like I really think this reveal would have landed better if it was Gwen Stacy.
Yeah, it would have.
Um because I just
More people care about Gwen Stacy than so.
it's
Just
not
being
even
just
that
being
more
blunt.
people it's not even that more people care about Gwen Stacy, it's just more people know Gwen Stacy. Like
Well,
the the
that's my point is that Silk is a relatively recent character, and Gwen Stacy is a classic staple.
well,
There's more history. There's more people just have more of an estimate.
to be fair, Miles is also a relatively recent character and people do love
Yes, and
Miles.
uh, some people. I mean,
People love
you have
Miles,
to keep in
Jason.
mind. You have to keep in mind. Like, there's a reason that the Miles Morales game sold half as well as the Spider-Man game did. Like, I like I don't care about Miles, to be frank. That's why I didn't care to play the game with him. And every time this game forced me to play as him, it's kind of like, whatever, just let me play as Peter Parker again.
Ugh.
Insomniac and certainly the Into the Spider-Verse movies have definitely like propelled Miles to be a beloved character, especially
Yes.
among like the younger generation.
100%. I mean, it's not even just the younger generation. Like
Well, that's the
bi
thing is that
BIPOC groups and stuff. Like he is their Spider-Man, and that's a big like plot point, kind of story point of Miles Morales, the midquel game. Um, that Harlem views him as their Spider-Man because he stands up for them, a community that doesn't really get a lot of protection. That was like the
right.
whole point of that.
A good comparison might be like younger Star Wars fans who idolize the prequels, if you get what I'm saying,
Mm.
versus like most people born before the 90s
Hey, but to be
who know that
fair,
they're shit.
Jason, but no, 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 no. First of all, the prequels are not shit, but also you got to admit the prequels look pretty damn good sitting next to the sequels.
Yes, they do. No, I'll say that, but
Like,
that doesn't make them good movies. But
I
you
mean,
get the point I was
We
trying to get
always
at was that
must
it's a
bring up Star
generational thing
Wars
because
every episode.
of course.
Miles Morales was only brought into the actual mainline canon. Like originally, he was an alternate universe character back in the late 90s, early 2000s, but he was only brought into the actual Spider-Man canon relatively recently when a lot of like hardcore Spider-Man fans had already stopped reading for a variety of reasons. So yes, there is a generational divide there, and obviously with the Into the Spider-Verse movies, like a lot of younger viewers watch that, and you're right, Delilah. For a lot of younger viewers, like he is their Spider-Man, but like for people who are more classically minded on the character, like it's a bit confusing.
Well, I would just chalk the confusing part up to comic books, Marvel comic books in
Well, that
general.
too.
Yeah.
There's kind of a lot of convolution going on
Yeah,
that
and
makes it very difficult. Like even I after playing this game, I was even just like marginally curious about like maybe reading Spider-Man comics. That is a fucking minefield. It's a nightmare figuring out where to start, what's part of what, and like just where to even go from there if you want to get into this stuff. It's so difficult to just get into comic books because of how much history there is and how it's all structured and how it all functions, especially with Marvel.
yeah,
That's
and
a
we'll
whole
get,
other can of worms, though.
well, it does tie into this game because it is confirmed in this game that the Avengers and Doctor Strange are both a thing at play in
Well,
this
that
game,
is true.
which really fucks with a lot of what, like, in terms of not Ludo, I don't even know. It's not Ludo narrative dissonance. We'll get to that when we get to that.
What, you're talking about the fact that there's a world-ending threat that's
Yes,
going around New York and the
and
Avengers just like,
you're
ah,
literally
the
swinging
spider
past the
got it.
Avengers Tower as an alien invasion is happening. You
Yeah.
Yeah.
literally know that Wong and Doctor Strange are active and are participating in certain aspects of what's going on, like side missions, and nobody's there. Like
I get it.
The game opens with Sandman literally laying waste to downtown. Hundreds of
Yeah.
thousands of people are probably dead as a result of this. Keep in mind, like Spider-Man has, for the most part, his popularity did kind of interject him into bigger things, but he's just at the heart he's a street level hero, so you got to be careful.
But I'm glad that they just focus on Spider-Man.
Yeah, I don't really want a game that's like,
But that's what I'm saying, is that the story pushes it to a point where it's like way past street level.
yeah, I get it. I get it. But there, like, I mean, there's the obvious answer, which is probably due to licensing purposes, they can't get all those
Yes.
other Marvel
No, no,
heroes.
no. Obviously, we know why they can't do that. I'm
But
just
you're right.
saying,
You're right in that it's very questionable that like the Avengers in no capacity show up to help out when this world-ending threat is barreling through New York City.
right.
Several world-ending threats are barreling through New York City. I get it. I understand where you're coming from with that. Um, but back to Silk.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
there's not much to say. Like we have to
yeah.
see what this incarnation of Silk
The
is.
point
Yeah.
I was trying to allude to before was that the first game ended with that reveal of the symbiote being the thing that's in the tank with Harry. And like that, we all know what that is. We all know what the symbiote is. We all know what Venom is. So that was like a huge tease that we could all get on board with being hyped about. This one kind of fell flat, and it's not that I think they should have gone for the popular character over for the less popular character. But at the same time, I don't know how many people know who Silk
Oh
is.
yeah, a lot of people were like, "Who? What? Huh?"
Yeah,
Um,
this was definitely this reveal definitely fell flat compared to the first
but
game's reveal.
I think that it's because the side quest really made some really cool reveals of what might be in Spider-Man 3. And in that way, I enjoyed it more because I felt like I was really rewarded for doing these side quests versus like most games or even previous Spider-Man games where not many of the side quests had such cool information and reveals about the world and what's to come.
Yeah, and I do want to talk at length about a lot of the side quests. But let's go into some major characters first. In general, I mean, we talked a bit about Peter, but one thing that I kind of the one comment I have about Peter throughout this game is when he gets the symbiote, when he gets the black suit, I feel like his change from being like normal and just realizing the amount of power and energy that he has, and then the shift to being just very angry and angsty happens very quickly,
Yes.
very like there's no build up to that. There's no like gradual angst that comes out of him. It's just one mission he is totally cool and fine, and then the next one he is pissy.
So I have a few things to say about that. One,
Okay.
there was ludonarrative dissonance is the word Jason just used, because if you do side quests after you get the symbiote, his tone of voice goes back to old Peter for certain side quests, and it takes you away from like the immersion of him being taken over by this thing. The other thing is I wonder, and that's just like a video game issue that I had,
Yeah.
but I do wonder if the reason why he transformed so quickly, like went into that deep voice and got so like edgy quickly, is because he actually died. Whereas I think in like
Oh.
other like iterations, he didn't die, he just like absorbed it somehow. And I wonder if like you dying makes it easier for Venom to like take over, and that's why Harry like descended really quickly, because he was dying as well.
Okay. So you think he died and then came back to like it healed him when he ripped it off, or
I'm pretty sure that was right when he got the black suit, he died, and Harry, like, well, I wouldn't even say Harry gave it to
well,
him, but like it chose him to
to
like
be
revive him.
to be clear, that the drastic change that I'm talking about is like at the beginning for the first few missions of him having the black suit, he seemed fine and
Yeah,
normal.
his attitude. Yeah,
It was just like there was like the flip of a switch from one mission to another with him still having the black suit, and he went from seemingly normal to very angsty. Um,
and
which
then
like
gives
it's
up the suit, and that all happens within like the course. If you're just focusing on the main story of within like an hour.
and it's entirely possible that like maybe not even dead, but maybe like asleep, because they kind of play with that idea that there's that mission where he goes back to the house and falls asleep, and then he goes on a rampage because he's asleep, Venom's awake, or the symbiote's awake, so it decides, let's go fuck shit up. Maybe it
I
was
mean,
tapping into his exhaustion and just I
I
don't know.
don't think there is an explanation other than this is, as I alluded to before, one of the side effects of too much being crammed into this 10-hour space.
Yeah.
And it's not just Peter and this Venom arc that's a victim. Pretty much every arc is a victim of it.
Yeah.
Um, but no, I totally agree that the change to Venom and then the change back from Venom, it all happens way too fast, and then you're just caught up in the last 2 hours. It feels like Delilah alluded to earlier that in the beginning of the game you get a lot of like character setup, and then all that character setup is just put on hold for like 6 hours, and then the last 2 hours we get back to like trying to resolve these arcs that we really haven't been working on much. It's just
Mhm.
a lot of plot in between. It's like, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. Um, Again, a pacing issue and just a result of the game being overstuffed.
Yeah, and it's kind of ironic we're talking about the game being overstuffed, because I feel like when it comes to Miles, his arc was kind of really sidelined.
Super
Yeah,
sideline.
it's the same when I mentioned character arcs being rushed. It's literally that was the first one I was thinking of, and they don't even like do a proper job of setting it up. And I said earlier that I don't care about Miles Morales, and I was actually kind of excited early in the game because I thought they were gonna like finally somebody was gonna tell Miles Morales' story that like really solidifies him for me as like his own thing, not just sitting in the shadow of Peter. And that was the cutscene where he sees Lee and he has basically to choose. Peter needs help with innocent victims, and he can
Yeah.
go out and get Lee. And that's like the perfect place to set up the arc where he makes a mistake.
Mm,
And as a result, somebody gets hurt, or God forbid, there are consequences to actions in this game. An innocent person dies because he didn't help Peter. And he made the choice to try to get after Lee, but he ends up losing Lee and causing destruction because of his obsession with, obviously Lee is the cause of his father's death. But no, he just listens to Peter. Everything ends up well. He gets away. And then for the rest of the game, we're supposed to assume that he's obsessed with Lee, but we never actually see it. We just are told it. Like his mother tells Peter at one point, "Oh, he's been looking at a lot of stuff about that Martin Lee character." And I'm like, Like Miles seems to be pretty level-headed throughout most of the game, yet we're supposed to buy into this arc of him being obsessed with revenge. I don't know.
I mean, I think, yeah, that's definitely a drop ball. I also think that this was like a really good opportunity for them to show the arc that we didn't really get to see for Peter, because the first Spider-Man game started with Peter having been Spider-Man for 8 years, which I don't argue with. I don't disagree with. I think that was a smart move, because how many times have we seen the Peter Parker Spider-Man origin story? But this could have been an opportunity to show, and they kind of set this up, that Miles is really struggling with the work-life balance, so to speak. You know, he's trying to go to school, he's trying to write his college, the whole
The
game, he's
college
trying to
essay
write.
thing comes up in the beginning and then at the very end. It's like
It comes
completely
up
forgotten.
throughout, but it's more like, did you finish your essay? You got to work on your essay, and then he types a word and then does nothing more about it. Like once or twice throughout the game. Like it does come up throughout the game. It's just it's just used to show that, oh, okay, he's too busy to do the things that he needs to do, and that was like what they were trying to do, was show the struggle between being a hero and also being the person, right? That they were trying to do that, and when they couldn't do it with Peter, they were trying to do it with Miles. Except it just takes a complete it's completely sidelined, because the focus is
Yeah.
so squarely on Peter and his relationship with Harry and his relationship with MJ, that Miles is kind of like, okay, yeah, like the whole drop ball with Martin Lee. He wants revenge, but he can't bring himself to do it, and he winds up not forgiving him, but accepting him. And that happens, that kind of gets resolved without a ton of progression.
Yeah, there's no build up for the payoff. There's just payoffs.
I agree with you that, really, there should have been some sort of larger, and I thought they were setting this up, right? Like they acknowledge that Miles is kind of jealous of how much attention Harry's getting. And I
Yeah.
thought that was going to set up for a bigger animosity between Miles and Peter, but it
So
really
did I.
didn't.
Yeah, so did I. There were a lot of things like that where I thought they were setting something up and it just never materialized. I
And
mean,
I
honestly, the conclusion I came to was that if you really wanted to have this game where you play as both of them, like obviously Miles is going to be in the story, but if you're going to have both of them be playable and both of them have substantial stories that tie together, this game needed to be longer. Like
oh
for just a
god.
10-hour mainline story, you needed to just have play as Peter and do the same thing with the first game where Miles is in cutscenes.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't I agree that Miles was sidelined. Like a lot of his missions were focused on like getting museum parts and things like
Yeah.
that, and still helping Harlem in a way, which we saw a lot of that already in Miles Morales. So I don't think that was really needed here.
Yeah,
I
that was
felt like they
honestly the coolest
could have.
part of Miles's story for me was like, oh, cool, it's Charlie Parker's. They stole Charlie Parker's shit. We got to go back. Charlie Parker, jazz legend. But that was like the coolest, the most standout part of Miles' story for me. Like,
But
unfortunately,
I do think they could have leaned a little bit more into like where Miles was going, because he did seem like he was consumed by revenge for a moment, especially when he was supposed to save people, but he was more focused on getting leave from the helicopter when the hunters were taking him away. But I also don't dislike the idea of Miles making better decisions than Peter at this point and not having to face those consequences, because he does have more support. Like he literally has Peter and he has his mom and he has like this girl, and he just has a lot of people to kind of shepherd him in the right way. But I don't think that we're completely done. I mean, at some point in Spider-Man 3, Miles is gonna have to do things on his own, and I don't think this is the end for seeing Miles like having to make decisions on his own and make mistakes. I just don't think this was the time, because I feel like the focus should have been more on Peter. I like you said it, then why even have Miles in the game if they're not gonna
well, as a
make
playable
him
character, yeah.
as a playable character? Yeah. If they're not gonna focus on him more. And I did want to play as Miles more. I did want to learn more about Miles, but I guess that was Miles Morales' opportunity, like the last, standalone game to get to know him. And this was, I felt like they didn't want to take away from Peter's story, and that's why he
Yeah.
felt sidelined.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is like, I don't know, going into this game, I really expected this to be a narrative that focused really heavily on both of them, as Spider-Man, and we really didn't get that. We really got a narrative that focused mostly on Peter and had something for Miles to do throughout it.
Yeah.
And
And
I can't help but feel a little disappointed in that.
and it's a shame because I've yet to see a Miles Morales story in any medium that really made me care about him. But when they set up that kind of impulse for revenge, in the beginning with that scene that I talked about, just a few minutes ago, I was excited because that's a cool arc. I would have really liked that if he actually like started going rogue or disobeying Peter or did things that had consequences, but they just never
Yeah, but to
really did
Delilah's
anything with it.
point, like he's not really that kind of character, right? He's not really that. He doesn't really have like those questionable morals like that. Where like I do like
But
the
that's
angle
the
of
point. That's the point. Is by the end of the game he overcomes it. It's an arc.
yeah. No, that's fair. That's fair. I do like the idea of I really like the idea of him making the wrong decision and it causing someone to die. I like the decision of him
Yeah,
make
it gives him
or
a
the
flaw.
idea of him making a mistake and he has to grow from that. He has to learn from that.
Yeah, it gives him
Um
a flaw. It just makes him more interesting.
yeah.
That's really all I was looking for. But
No, yeah, I get that.
as
And
it stands, for most of the game, he's like the one that comes in and saves Peter all the time. And it's like, yeah, at the end of the game when Peter says, why does the city need Spider-Man when they have you? It's like the way it's portrayed. Yeah, apparently Miles Morales doesn't have any character flaws. He's perfectly, with the exception that apparently I never knew this about Miles Morales until this game, and I paused the game and started laughing hysterically
what?
when I realized that his father's name is Jefferson Davis. Um,
If you figured that out in the first game,
I
Jason.
well, I like I said, I barely remember the first game,
Oh,
but
okay.
like I never knew that Miles Morales, and I had to look this up that his father is canonically in the comics Jefferson Davis.
Yeah,
Oh
what
my god,
why is that so funny?
because Jefferson Davis was the president of the Confederacy in the Civil War.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, fair enough.
So I was just like, what? Like they had to have known that. And this isn't even on Insomniac. This is just Marvel writers
No,
because this
this
goes
is
back to the character's
yeah.
creation. Like, did they just not know that when they made the character?
I don't know.
Were they just like, well, we can't we can't have our character named Miles Davis. What's like, but we want to have Davis so that people can think Miles Davis. What's a cool name to go with Davis? What about Jefferson? Yeah, that's a great name. Jesus Christ. Anyway, side note, I just found that fucking hysterical when I found that out because I never knew that before I played this game.
Yeah. Okay. Um. All right. Do we have anything else to talk about the two Spider Men, as it were, before we move on to some other characters?
What did you think of his suit?
Oh,
Which
thank you.
are you
The
talking about the
Thank
Adidas
one
you.
at the end?
tracksuit?
You're talking about the
Yeah.
one
Oh,
at the end, the Adidas
yeah.
one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that suit is ass. First of all, you realize the point of a mask is to conceal, your identity.
Yeah.
So having a mask that shows your full hair kind of defeats the purpose of fucking having a mask. I mean, I understand that it was product placement for Adidas, but like still.
Yeah. It kind of was
I would
product
have liked
placement
the
for Adidas.
suit more if it didn't have the hair exposed as well, and then I could have gotten behind it.
Yeah. I just like I do find the whole line like it was time for a Miles Morales original. Like he built his own suit twice. Why like what was the point of that line was there just to justify him changing to a new suit. And I guess they just really wanted to make him have a new suit when Peter got a new suit in the black suit and the anti-venom suit. So I guess they wanted to make up for that, but I don't know. Yeah, it was kind of it's not my favorite design for Miles for sure.
I did like the way you see the electricity going through where the Adidas lines should be. I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
And the hoodie, I
Yeah.
love hoodies. So,
Yep. By the way, if you like those sneaks, you can purchase them right now at adidas.com.
damn.
If they're not sold out, I don't know. This also isn't the first time they've done an Adidas collaboration. They did that for Miles Morales as well. Like the Miles Morales game.
Mhm.
He was wearing Adidas shoes in that game that you could also purchase.
Yeah.
Um, it's kind of a shame. The Wheaties box wasn't in the game though. Did
Yeah.
you guys see the Wheaties?
No.
There was a special edition Wheaties box.
It was too expensive.
Yeah,
$50 for cereal, get out of here.
I'm a sucker. I bought it.
Oh my god, you're crazy.
I bought the stupid cereal.
Damn.
But anyway, we talked a bit about MJ. I think playing as her was a little more tolerable in this one because they actually gave her like a weapon.
Yeah.
So you could get a little more creative with your stealthing as her, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, I don't know, I don't really want to play as MJ as much as I want to play as
Honestly,
the other two.
I felt like giving her the weapon and then just the little line, "Oh, I've been training with Sable," and then she can one shot every enemy and not even have to sneak. You can just run. Enemies can look directly at you and nothing happens.
Oh,
Um,
I found it harder than that. Like you did have to be like a little strategic, I think.
Again, like just listening to that interview of the director talking about how they decided to just double down because people didn't like it. Like there was no reason for these Mary Jane sections to be in the game.
Yeah,
Honestly,
Yeah,
use that time to actually develop Miles and Peter
her
fair
and
enough.
gun
other characters.
completely one-shotted the symbiotes, and I was like, how? I'd like
Right.
literally have to
All right.
punch them for
Because
hours.
he added
Yes.
a sonic attachment to it.
Yes,
Yeah, but
but
even his like
Spider-Man
own
Spider-Man
sonic
canonically,
attacks can't
yeah,
kill
Spider-Man
them one shot.
canonically can punch a man's head off. He has to withhold his strength to not kill the criminals he's hunting down. And yet you have to engage in like 3 or 4, 5 hit combos to take down these things, even when you become anti-venom, yet she
Yeah,
can like one shot these
we'll
things.
talk about the combat later for sure.
Look,
But I don't know, man. Like she's got like speakers in her stun gun now. That works to kill the symbiotes. I'm being facetious, by the way. I'm not.
Yes, I know.
I'm not. I'm not actually sitting here trying to justify it.
it's hard to justify when I have a fully upgraded Miles and Peter, and she's still taking them out much easier.
Yeah.
Um, look, I don't mind MJ being like a different MJ from the comics or a different MJ from the MCU.
Yeah. Neither do
That's
I.
totally fine. I
Hmm.
just feel like, especially when you're about to do the point of no return and she's the first character you play with, it
Right.
just brought me down rather than up. And I like that she had a bigger role in this, sure, no doubt, but I don't feel like she needed to be a playable character unless they're trying to build her to be a playable character in the future, which would be a whole other conversation.
It's just weird because in in the comics, Mary Jane is an extremely successful model who becomes an extremely successful actress, who then becomes an extremely successful executive businesswoman who essentially bankrolls Peter Parker. She's I don't know what the term would be, baby mom or whatever. It's like she makes all the money so that he can go be Spider-Man and
That
doesn't
would be
have to
sugar
worry about a
mama.
job. She's like, and they talk about making her
Thank you,
playable to make
Delilah.
her, more have her more what's the word? Have her have more agency. But she has a shit ton of agency in the comics. She's just not involved in fucking superhero shit. She's like fuck. And the whole point of her character in the comics is that while she's outwardly very confident, she has a lot of demons in her closet because of her upbringing, and Peter fills that gap, and they fill each other's gaps. Good relationship. It's why it's the most long-standing one. In
Yeah.
this one, she's basically doing what Peter would normally be doing, struggling with a job, which again, take that out and put in more stuff with Peter and Miles to develop them.
Well, I think yeah. I mean, they wanted to go for a different MJ, and I guess they did kind of want to backfill like
She's
Peter's.
basically kind of Lois Lane here. Like it's weird.
Well, I mean, you heard it here first. Spider-Man 2 is the best Superman game we've ever gotten.
Yeah, with that wingsuit.
True. Superman 64. I'm a diehard supporter.
He's not. Yeah, there's not much competition to be fair, but yeah. I don't know. I didn't have as many problems with MJ as a character. But playing as her, I could take or leave. It
Yeah.
was an improvement from the first game, but yeah, it definitely slows down the pace for sure.
Her becoming Scream was super unexpected though.
Yeah, that was unexpected. I also didn't know that Scream was a thing. I had no idea what
I
that character
confused
was.
Scream with Shriek when I was doing this playthrough. Who's
I
like
don't even know what
Right. Yeah. No.
like
is a shriek.
woman, and
Yeah.
she's like loud and annoying. And I was like,
I-
oh, she shouldn't be a symbiote. She should like help fight them because of her sonic voice scream thingy. But then I confused the character. She's actually supposed to be technically like Carnage's daughter or something like that.
Yeah, a lot of this is weird. If like Delilah, obviously, you seem to have watched the cartoons or read the comics, so you're kind of like me. Like you have some
It's so
knowledge of
long
like the
ago that I
background.
barely remember them.
But
Yeah.
like a lot of this is weird because Eddie Brock is Venom, for those who don't know. Traditionally at least.
Traditionally,
Typically.
yeah.
So there's a whole, and Venom has his own comic sub universe within the Spider-Man universe. So a lot of that stuff is like characters that are traditionally tied to the Venom stories that they're now kind of integrating into a Spider-Man story with Harry as Venom. And so that's there's a lot of like confusing bits.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
But yeah, that was surprising.
Yeah,
Pretty cool.
I definitely wasn't expecting it, and like I said, I had no idea who the character was.
It just makes me think where they're going with MJ. I feel like they're trying to do something bigger with her, but if they're gonna do something big with Miles and then they're gonna have Silk around, then they can't also focus on MJ. That's just too much. Unless they just keep going with these games and these spin-offs. Which
Hey,
MJ spin-off will piss people off.
if they keep selling as well as they sell, they probably will keep going with it.
Yeah.
Seems like Insomniac likes doing them enough. But we'll talk about the potential future of Insomniac at the end of the episode. So stay tuned for that. Well, let's talk about a little bit about Harry, a little bit more about Harry. Because this whole heal the world thing I felt was kind of like a flimsy plot device. They talk about like how Peter and his project in school was this whole like his mom named it Heal the World, but we never really find out what that project was. And it seems like that was just kind of like a way to cure world hunger or cancer or something. Like they never really explain what does this whole Heal the World project mean. What is the Emily May Foundation planning to do like in as a whole? Like it's doing a lot of things that could supposedly help the world, but like what is their overall focus? What is their overall end goal? And it's just like it seemed like it was a whole like it was kind of like a slogan for the character to play into his transformation as Venom or into Venom, and then the whole conclusion that we talked about in the ending section at the beginning of the episode.
Yeah.
What were your guys' thoughts on Harry?
Honestly, Harry is so unlikable in my opinion, at least this version of Harry. Even actually he was more likable when he started to become Venom and he like takes his like symbiote to like pick up the tea and like serve it. I was like, "Oh yeah, that's cool." But like before that, I don't know, he was just kind of annoying. He felt very he kind of like jealous of Peter and Peter's relationship with Miles for like no reason, and I feel like he was like just shady all the time, even though like they're best friends and they definitely depicted that clearly when the symbiote was passed on to Peter to save him. I don't know, I didn't like Harry. He just annoyed me. I feel like I might be alone on that though.
No, I kind of got, I don't know, I got like a vibe from him the entire game where it like I don't know that I did ever really believe them as best friends. Like in the section where you play as them as kids, I kind of did, but their reunion just it had its moments when they started playing the Shin song and they were playing basketball and around the school and whatnot. Like I
Yeah.
kind of believed it then, but throughout the game, it always seemed like I always expected like the shoe to drop and Harry to have like ulterior motives for pulling Peter in. Um, or even for him to like maybe the symbiote's affecting him in some way and it's making him more sinister than he appears. But like even the symbiote being attached to Harry didn't make a ton of sense to me in the sense that he never really got negative in the way that the symbiote brings that out in you until he reclaimed it in the at the end of the second act and became Venom. Like he just seemed like normal Harry the entire time. And there was the whole thing with Dr. Connors, like when Peter has it, he's like, "Oh, you got to destroy it. You got to destroy it. You shouldn't have that." And it's like, "Well, why the fuck did you use it on Harry then? And why did you let him keep it? Like it just doesn't really add up. It doesn't really make sense."
Yeah, and also Harry just like peer pressuring Peter to work for the Annie May. Oh my god.
Peter, you want to save the bees. You want to do it.
in that
You know, you want to charge
foundation.
some
He's
bicycles.
like, "Oh, do it for my dead mom and your dead aunt." Like,
I mean,
come on.
I personally, I thought that segment was also pretty cool because it was like, look, you can finally have the funding, you can finally do good for the world that you know, unbeknownst to Harry, doesn't involve being Spider-Man, and you don't have to scrounge and suffer for anything. Like, I will take care of you. The Oscorp, I guess, would take care of him, but like not Oscorp directly, so he feels a little better about it. It's like it's like that subsidiary of Nestle that's like, you know, doing good things, but they're still owned by Nestle.
Right.
Yeah, it's just another victim of not enough time, and they got to rush and put in. Harry has some really awkward dialogue, especially in the Coney Island scene. Like, subtext message to Insomniac
Well,
writers,
to
like he
to be
basically
fair, he was third wheeling the whole time.
no,
You'd
I
be
know, but
awkward too if you were third
no.
wheeling
Third
him.
wheeling
Well,
with
no.
someone he
I,
kind
I
of
I don't mean awkward like that.
had
I
a
mean
thing.
awkward like he literally says to Peter, "This is the best night of my life." And then as they get off the ride, do you guys realize in another universe I wouldn't be here? I would be like dead. It's like, yes, we get that subtext is
I
running through the
mean,
scene. You
to
don't
be
need to
fair,
vocalize it.
Jason, he's been asleep in a tank for like 2 years. You'd be a
I
little
know.
socially awkward too if you came out of a tank, went to Coney
Anyway,
Island with your best friend, and were like, just the best old time."
I know. Just something another thing that I laughed at for the wrong reason. But like honestly, the bigger issue is like you said, he kind of just switches on a dime, and becomes like super dark after having this whole like section of the game where it looks like he wants to team up with Spider-Man and be a hero too, and then suddenly he doesn't have the symbiote and like he's jealous and dying. And I can see what they're trying to do with Harry. He's obviously a foil to Craven,
Yeah.
where they're both facing death and the two ways that they kind of approach it. Um, but I agree that they didn't do a very good job of setting up the whole save the world thing. It was just like kind of another thing that needed more time. The story overall needed to pick like a few of these things and focus on them, because you also have like a whole arc. You mentioned Dr. Connors, a whole arc about, or not arc, just running the theme of
Yeah, just
villains
like
redeeming
a couple
themselves.
quests, yeah.
Uh, and it's also like stuck like with Tombstone into the main story of like villains who have redeemed themselves.
I actually
And
really liked that. I really liked that,
I like it
like,
as an idea. It's just there's
yeah.
already so much shit going on that isn't
I
getting
mean, to be
really
fair,
fleshed out.
I don't think a reformed Tombstone was intended or needed to do much more than it did. I think it accomplished all it needed to in the segments that it was included with. Personally, I don't know. Maybe you think it needed
I mean, we
more.
can't focus on everyone all the time. There's so many of these characters, and not in the
Yeah,
game, but just in the universe.
yeah.
But
I just like
that's
the
what I'm
idea
saying
of,
is just pick a few things, because
yeah.
like we'll talk about Craven, I'm sure.
Well, we should
Yeah,
talk about Craven
next.
now. I think, yeah, we'll talk about Craven now.
Probably the most interesting part of the game, and
Mm.
he's essentially just a plot facilitator by the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, his motivation was overall pretty simple. He was dying of cancer. He wanted to go out in glorious battle versus in sickly death, and saw, hey, this New York place, it's a bustling town full of big fucking weirdos like me. Let's go fight them.
But we're not going to fight the Avengers or Doctor Strange.
I thought it was fucking crazy that he killed like almost every villain from the first
Yeah,
game.
the
I
whole
mean,
Sinister Six.
like, yeah, like, but to do that off screen, like, at least have a short cutscene showing us one by one him taking them out, like
I,
cutscenes
for,
interspersed.
I forget. Did we see him kill Scorpion?
Nope.
Just Yeah,
Oh wait, no. Hold on. Yes, we did. I think we
just
saw him kill one of
Scorpion.
them.
Okay,
Just
okay.
Scorpion.
Yeah, but
I think it's
Vulture,
implied that like
Electro,
all of them died.
Shocker.
We didn't see,
Yeah.
no. We just saw
But
like the parts in the where he had the hunters.
yeah, we go into like a base and it's just like, oh, here's a piece of so and so's suit. I guess he fucked them up. Oh, it was when I think it was sneaking around like a camp or something. It was when Mary Jane was sneaking around, I think, the camp, that she saw, like, oh
Yes.
my god.
Yes. Yes.
He fucking killed Electro and Vulture and Shocker and all these other dudes.
The Sinister Six. Yeah, that
Yeah,
that was set up.
nearly all of the Sinister Six. The only ones that he didn't kill were Martin Lee and Otto, because Otto didn't
Yeah.
escape. Talking about, this continuity Sinister Six, Jason, not like the traditional Sinister Six.
Right.
Yeah.
Um,
Also, I'm trying to remember this correctly, but if you do the Hunter side quest, which I'm only saying it because it relates to Craven and his story about his family,
yeah.
you find out that like he gave no shits about his family. His main focus was to just find the right predator to like take his life in a
Yeah,
glorious way.
he killed his whole family, didn't he?
I thought that was his daughter that killed the whole family, Anna, whatever, Chanel or
Oh,
whatever.
no, I thought he killed them, but I could be mistaken. I kind of like, I don't know, that wasn't like a big reveal that like rippled through me
It
very
was over
much.
like a comms, and
Yeah,
I think I
right.
remember like
Yeah.
the daughter being the one who killed the mom and the brother.
Okay. You might be right. And
Yeah.
then did he kill her too,
No, I
or
think
the
she's
daughter?
just alive. Like,
Oh, okay.
yeah. I think I could be wrong. Correct me in the comments.
I don't know if this is set up for something further, but there was also the side quest line where you chase the robot birds through their wind tunnels or whatever, and that
Hmm.
leads you to Chameleon's apartment.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if that's set up for more, or if that's just like, hey, teasing Chameleon's around. He's related to Craven. He's his half brother or whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
they might do like a Sandman thing with Chameleon in Spider-Man 3 where it's not like it's just like a thing that you experience, but it's not the focus of the story. He's not the main
yeah,
villain or anything.
yeah, maybe. I really liked the segment where you're pretending to be a waiter in like the lodge that he's staying at, and Peter has to like deliver a hunk of meat to his pet tiger.
Oh my god, yes, I love
Um,
that. You could
Uh,
pet the tiger too. I was so happy.
like the sequence itself, and I guess this is just another one of those like things that could have been boiled down into a quick cutscene. But like the sequence itself was fine. Of all of kind of the weird, more cinematic sections, this is probably the one I had the least problem with. In theory, in practice, I encountered a game breaking or a game blocking progress blocking bug
Uh-oh.
where it wouldn't let me do the latch to go over. There's a part where you have to shoot the web connecting thing and walk over the table to get the whatever from the table, the meat for the
Yeah.
tiger or whatever. And it wouldn't let me shoot the thing onto that wall. Apparently, a lot of people had this. This is like a pretty common one. And I was basically for like 2 hours on the
Oh my
internet trying
god.
to figure out if I was doing
Oh,
something
jeez.
wrong. So I eventually just had to load from the last checkpoint.
Okay.
But
Wow.
I just had
Simple
a bad
fix.
experience. Yeah, but
Uh,
I mean, yeah, in theory, it was a cool scene. Um, but again, like Craven is such a cool character in Marvel generally that I just felt like he was kind of wasted here because there's so much going
yeah, I
on.
mean, he kind of like he kind of acted like Martin Lee in the first one, where Martin Lee was kind of teased as like the big villain. You take him down about halfway through, and then the real big bad emerges. Except Martin Lee still kind of reemerged when the real big bad emerged in that game. Craven dies halfway through in
Right,
this one,
exactly.
or not halfway through, but at the end of Act Two, when Venom is fully alive.
Yeah, which
Um,
honestly, like, it was probably one of my favorite. Like, I didn't have a problem necessarily with Venom just biting his head off the way he did. Honestly, I
mhm,
felt like it was one of the coolest parts of the story.
mhm,
Although, at the same time, but then again, you have Harry, so you got to do something with Harry. Again, too much shit
yeah.
going on. It would have been more made more sense to maybe pare it down and have Craven ultimately become Venom. It's fucking
I
super
thought they might
strong.
have gone that direction
Yeah,
because it
Hey.
seemed like he was playing with the symbiote a lot when, when Peter had it. And I thought they might have gone that direction, but I guess him fighting it was more his thing than becoming it. Because like you said, he unlike Harry, he's not interested in like fighting this or like finding a way to live with cancer or whatever. He was more trying to find something to kill him gloriously. So I guess it would have been out of character if he did essentially become Venom, but I thought
Hmm.
they
Yeah.
might have been going that direction at one point too.
And yeah, like he's ultimately supposed to be a foil for Harry, but again, what does that foil serve to the ultimate story? I don't know.
Because there's so many characters in Spider-Man that use these powers to get over their limp leg or their aging process or their dying process, and it's finally cool to have one who's just like, no, I'm gonna keep this and I'm gonna like kill everyone and wait until someone's worthy enough to kill me and just fight. You know?
Yeah, I almost it almost makes me wish with the way, Mark alluded to earlier, how quickly the Peter Parker Venom arc kind of sorts itself out within an hour. He snaps and then goes back. And how Venom is really only like a prevalent thing in the last few hours of the story. It almost makes me wish
Yeah.
that they had held on to that card and focused more on Craven and tried to focus the story down more on something. I don't know
Yeah.
what, but like,
I mean, with the fact that we got Venom in this game, though, I wish we got more of him because I feel like Venom really emerges really late in the game, and we don't spend a whole lot of time dealing with him. Um, I was blown away by the segment where you play as him.
yeah,
Oh
it
my
was the
god, that
best
was
part of
so
the game.
unexpected.
Gameplay wise, the Venom section where you play as him was the best part by far.
Yeah, that was really fucking cool
That
and
was so cool.
totally unexpected. And I was like, damn, this is fucking wicked sick.
Yeah, definitely
Um,
the best part of the game.
Which is why
yeah,
I felt like even though I lament that Craven was kind of for all intents and purposes wasted, um, the way he gets killed by Venom is is satisfying end to that gameplay segment.
Yeah,
It was
it's
by
super
far the best part of the
satisfying.
game, in my opinion.
Especially in Times Square, like what a cool arena to have this
Right.
epic battle in. I don't I by the way, I don't feel like Craven was wasted, but I do like the idea of them putting more cutscenes of him actually killing these the Sinister Six.
yeah, I like
And
that too.
yeah, seeing more
Rather,
of his
yeah,
wrath.
Yeah, it feels weird. Like such prominent members of Spider-Man's rogues gallery, it feels weird just having them die off screen unceremoniously.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'll agree with that.
totally.
Um, what was I gonna? I was gonna say something about that. Oh yeah, I mean, I think I forget where I read this, and I think this is a great suggestion. But I can't give I unfortunately can't give credit to whoever I saw say this. With how Craven and Venom are just like kind of in the city somewhere, I think it would have been really cool if while moving around the city, they were out there and could like ambush you or something, and you'd have to do a quick fight before they'd like get away. Just to make them a little more prevalent in the story and actually give them, or like in the game, really in the game world, and give you a little more time fighting against them.
To make the
Yeah.
open world more dynamic, yeah. It's a cool
Yeah,
idea.
like I think we'll talk about this a little bit. I think they really improved the crime system in with this game. I think it's way better because they're not treated as collectibles. They're just treated as dynamic events,
Right.
which I think
Yeah.
is the correct way to go about doing crimes in the city. But with these villains, I think it would have been really cool to have them like ambush and attack you while you're going around the city. Especially in the case of Venom, where like at least Craven, he has like a lair, so to speak. Does Venom? Where's his lair? Where is he throughout the? Where is he in between story missions when you're not interacting with him?
Right.
You
It's
The
not
know?
like a
nightclub.
fucking army, yeah.
Yeah, like I don't know. I think that would have been a way to maybe alleviate the lack of Venom in the last third of the game, because he's introduced and I feel like you just don't see him as a threat a whole lot. It's just like we gotta save Harry. It's like, well, no, you don't just gotta save Harry. You gotta stop Venom. That's like kind of the bigger thing. I don't know. I feel like I wanted more time with Venom. I feel like introducing him in the last third of the game was that was a waste. I don't think Craven was entirely wasted, but I think Venom kind of was.
Well, when I say he's wasted, I more mean just going back. I am sorry to repeat myself. Going back to the idea that it's just a bloated story for the amount of time that they gave it. If they'd put more time, made the main campaign longer, I think they could have really done something special with it, but for the amount of time that they were giving the campaign, about 10 hours, you needed to pick Craven or Venom.
Hmm.
And honestly, I think it would have been a better idea to hold on to the Venom card
Yeah,
for
but after
3.
teasing it at the end of 1, there was no way they were going to hold on to it.
I
You
know,
know.
but
But Craven was kind of treated as the starter villain. He just never really got to have.
yeah, he was like that plot facilitators.
Yeah, no, plot facilitator is a decent way to describe him. Um, one more, not one more. We have a bunch more characters to talk about. We gotta speed through some of these. I want to talk about the Flame side quests. It's probably the most major side quest line there was, and this is what kind of reintroduces Yuri. What did you guys think of Yuri as Wraith?
Boss fight, that was really cool fighting her.
Yeah, that was cool. She's got a
Um,
she's got an even more nasty attitude than she did in the first
yeah, I
game.
love that she brought back the spider cop. How she would
Yeah.
kill him. That had me dying. That was so
Um,
good.
I can't remember in our Spider-Man 1 episode, did we also cover the DLC for that?
No,
Okay, because the DLC was what kind of explains why Yuri's in the state that she's in.
yeah,
Like
Yeah,
that
see,
that
they really should have had. So when I started this game gives you an option to do a recap, and I had to do that because I had almost no
yeah,
memory.
right.
I didn't even remember Yuri at all from the first game. So when this storyline started, I was kind of like, "Who the fuck are you again?"
Well, that's because it happens in the DLC, and I don't think that recap talks about much
Nope.
about the DLC, if at
Nah.
all. And like the DLC plot for the first game, it was split into 3 parts, but it was like one cohesive narrative, and that was all centered around Hammerhead trying to take over the Maggia crime families. And Yuri kind of gets she tries to kill Hammerhead, and that winds up getting her kind of dismissed from the police force. And she starts kind of
She becomes a
leaning toward,
vigilante.
yeah, she starts leaning
Yeah.
toward becoming a vigilante. And that's how Wraith's origin story kind of works, and how she's kind of reintroduced in this game. Um, but yeah, they didn't really go over that, and kind of like I imagine there's a lot of people that didn't play the DLC for the first game, so reintroducing her this without really any additional context is uh, a little questionable for sure.
yeah. I
And I
feel like
mean,
they were better off exploring Wraith as a side quest in the first Spider-Man game rather than like Screwball.
Oh God. Well, they kind of they kind of do, in the sense that in the third DLC chapter, there's like a whole side quest line where you find that she's leaving clues for you around, and it ends with Spider-Man talking, or Peter talking to her on the phone, and she's all broody, like, just let me do my thing.
Yeah,
I'll talk to you later.
I mean,
yeah,
not to be too blunt about it, but that whole side quest, at least from my point of view, didn't really serve to do anything for Wraith so much as it was just to tease Carnage.
that's
Yeah, I
true.
know. Well, here's where I'm kind of going with this, because I have I don't know. This isn't really a theory. This is more so I think this would be really cool. Um, and what I kind of want to ask you guys is, yeah, there was the tease of Carnage, the Flame, the guy that was calling himself the Flame is Cletus Cassidy, and he steals a symbiote. Clearly, he's going for Carnage. Um, do you think Carnage is going to be explored in a DLC
I
in
hope not a DLC.
Spider-Man 3, or do you think we're going to get a Miles Morales similar game focused around Wraith fighting Carnage?
I mean, it's again, Carnage is more like I was saying earlier. Traditionally, Carnage is more of a Venom thing, um, and is usually tied into like the Venom subverse of the Spider-Man universe. So I don't know, maybe they'll tie it into DLC. But I've also heard rumors that apparently it leaked that like there's Daredevil's going to be in the DLC for this
Well,
game.
yeah, we'll talk about that at the end of
Yeah,
the episode.
which I
I do want to
desperately
talk about
hope
that.
not, but we'll get to if you, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe. But I guess the one thing that would excite me about that is the potential because Carnage is so closely tied to Venom, of perhaps getting more Venom gameplay. Um,
Mm.
Maybe they introduce Eddie Brock in a DLC with Carnage and explore Carnage more, and we get like a more permanent Venom within this Spider Verse.
Either that, or we get a maybe this a proposed standalone mid-quel game or whatever, similar to Miles. Like maybe it's a Venom game. Eddie Brock
Because
gets the
like
symbiote, and we
I,
fight
I
Carnage.
we all agree that Venom section was fucking awesome
Yeah, it
from a
was.
gameplay and a spectacle perspective. Yeah,
Yeah. And Insomniac, I think it was Brian Intihar from Insomniac, did say that like they'll consider making a Venom game if the fans want it, and I think the fans do want it. Let's be real. Um,
Yeah.
so it's possible.
Yeah, it just better not be just DLC. Like, let it be a standalone game or part of Spider-Man 3, because I feel like Carnage is too big, and like Maximum Carnage is such a good comic that they can pull so much cool things from there. That yeah, I would hope that they don't just make it just a little DLC for Carnage.
Did
You
you
know?
did you guys ever play the PS1 Spider-Man game?
Yeah.
Do you remember how Carnage and Doc Ock kind of combined to create Monster Rock?
No.
Man, fucking
Forgot.
bring Monster Rock back, guys. That's what I'm saying. Have that Carnage Doc Ock team up where they
They
combine.
I
might.
mean, look, we speculated, or I speculated. I think Delilah agreed in the beginning that they might be going toward, or probably going towards a superior Spider-Man
Yeah.
um, storyline, and them teasing Carnage might be that it ends up being precisely what you just said, that in
Yeah.
his attempts to continue taking over Spider-Man, he accidentally is fused with Carnage.
This will bring my Spider-Man nostalgia full circle because I played
Right.
that PS1 game way too much as a kid. Um, but other the only other the other villain. Oh, there's a couple villains here that we haven't talked about yet. That could be worth talking about. We kind of talked about Martin Lee and his kind of presumed redemption. I think that was like a decent arc for him. Nothing too major, nothing too substantial, but Jason looks like he has thoughts.
It's not
Jason
so much
always
Martin
has
Lee.
thoughts.
It's not so much Martin Lee. Like the Martin Lee stuff was fine. If not, like again, this just ties back to what we were talking about with Miles Morales. It's all just a bit rushed, that arc. I wish it had been fleshed out more with, Miles going more through it. But again, it goes back to really should have just been a Spider-Man 2 and then a Miles Morales 2, rather than
Mm,
both of them in one game. But regardless, I was more just all these villains redeeming themselves, um, which is hard to reconcile when Sandman is killing hundreds of thousands of people in the beginning of the game, and Peter and Miles are like more worried
well,
about
they try to like
Sandman than the actual people that are
they
being
try to like
killed.
establish that as like his mind is like fractured or
Yeah,
whatever.
I know,
And
but
like,
just in general, with all the like they do it with Mysterio, they do it with Dr. Connors. Like these people are fucking mass murderers. Like,
you know.
so it's just a bit hard to reconcile that. But I like, and again, I don't understand why they had to consistently focus on that when there are other things that needed more focusing on. But
Hmm.
like for Martin Lee in that case, given what they were trying to do with Miles, but didn't really set up or pay off too well. Like it's fine character arc on paper. I just don't feel, again, just wasn't enough time to like fully explore it.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think for Miles' sake, it would have been better to focus on Martin Lee a little bit more. But for Martin Lee alone, I think we got enough of his character in the first game.
Okay.
And yeah, but the talking about the Mysterio side mission, that boss fight was super cool in the snow globe. I really enjoyed that. I didn't think that side quest line was gonna have such a payout, and I like how they played with like, oh, is Mysterio being a bad guy, or is he like what's going on there? And it turns out like he was just being his powers were being used for like amusement, and like those women were using his power to get financial gain building this
Yeah.
attraction.
Like he was reformed, but he was kind of being manipulated
Yeah.
um by I guess people arguably worse than him now. Um it was interesting, listening to the audio tapes that you'd get after each Mysterium and kind of inching toward that the solution to that mystery was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
On the topic of the Mysteriums, those versus like the past challenge rooms that they've kind of given us in these games, like did you think that they were a fun challenge, a good diversion?
I really like the first and the last one. I feel like the in between like challenges, they just don't do anything for me really.
Okay.
Like I
There
feel
was
like
one that kind of annoyed the shit out of me. Overall, I thought they were kind of easy.
I didn't
yeah,
engage with the optional ones much, but I really fucking hated the main story part you have to do with Miles, the DJ section.
I thought that was
It's like
so cool.
Oh yeah, I think it just
it's
went
just
on too
too
long.
long. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, it
the like yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, it was kind of like it was like kind of like the weird rhythm game that like you used to get in like a Jack and Daxter game that's just
yeah.
there for a mission and then never shows up again. Um yeah, it just went on too long for me. I'll agree with that.
I like how trippy it was. I like the arenas. They look really cool.
Mm. The only other character I have listed here that we didn't really talk about is the one that Delilah has been alluding to, who is Delilah.
Who is also an assassin.
Yeah. This also fell flat for me. I had no idea who the hell this chick was. This is the conclusion of the spider collecting all the spider bots and finding out where they're coming from, and a big hole opens up that leads to a different dimension, and this chick Delilah, not our Delilah, a different Delilah, spelled differently too. Um Starts talking about rogue spider bots and wanting them, and she's animated like the Spider-Verse movies because she was apparently cut from Across the Spider-Verse. There was
Mm.
supposed to be a scene with her in that movie, and she was cut for whatever reason. Um, but yeah, she mentions Miguel O'Hara and then disappears.
Yeah.
Um, this whole thing fell flat for me. Which is disappointing because I love those Spider-Verse movies, and I love how much love they've been giving all kind of sectors of spider history, and how the advanced suit has appeared in both of those movies. So clearly they're showing some love to Insomniac. This
Yeah.
reveal was just kind of like, it just felt like recycled content from that movie that was presented without context. It was just kind of weird.
Mind it as like a little reward for connecting the universes for doing this little side quest. Once again, it's better than just collecting it for collecting its sake. I felt like it was so
Yeah,
just little.
that is one thing I'll say about the collectibles, is that they were far better in this game than they were in the past two.
Yeah.
Because they weren't just things to collect for the sake of collecting a thing. They were more meaningful than that.
Yeah.
Um, at least largely, and there were less of them too. It's not like you had 55 spider bots to collect. It was a lot of spider bots, but not like 55 backpacks that kind
Yeah.
of just give you a line of dialogue from Peter.
Totally.
Um,
One
so
real quick, I just realized one name that you left off here on notes.
what's that?
Um, and one of the characters that I was actually very happy with how they presented her in terms of
Oh,
adapting.
Black
Black
Cat.
Cat, yeah.
Oh yeah, I guess I didn't
Um, I was a
put
little
on Black Cat
disappointed
here.
that it was a Miles mission, considering Miles has nothing to do with Black Cat. That's all Peter, but whatever. So the depiction of Black Cat here, and also the tease you get at the end with Doctor Strange. Well, technically Wong, but obviously it's meant to imply that Doctor Strange is active in this universe.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I liked that mission with her. I liked the depiction of her, very faithful to Black Cat.
You
Um,
might enjoy the DLC for the first game then, Jason, because there's the first chapter of the first game's DLC is all about Black Cat.
oh, I mean,
Wait,
I'm
Just throwing it out
probably
there. You
yeah.
might enjoy it.
actually liked her presentation more in this game than in the DLC.
Mm.
But I love how they use the Rift Apart technology in this mission.
Yeah, yeah,
That was
really.
so cool.
The power of the
For
PS5.
for
Yeah.
the Doctor Strange, the portal. Well, she's stealing an artifact that is very clearly magical, and then at the end you get the little letter through the portal
From
from
Yeah,
Wong, yeah.
Wong.
it's just the fact that you get that instant load going through a circle and you're in a completely different environment. Frankly, this
Yeah,
game really is like a fucking technical marvel. Um
yeah.
it blew my goddamn mind when I opened the map, and I wasn't using fast travel because it's like traversal's fun. I might as
It
well just
is,
swing
yeah.
and fly everywhere. But if you go into your map and you point to a place with your cursor and then you press
And
and
you
hold the
fast
fast
travel.
travel button,
Yeah.
you immediately, like, the camera just swoops down into the map and you're there.
Yeah.
Like, instantaneously. Fucking crazy. How did they do that? That's
It's so good.
nuts. That's so nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot
Insomniac
of cool
really
stuff like this.
is, they really are like the champions of the PlayStation right now. I gotta
Totally.
say, it's fucking crazy. Anyway, yeah, Black Cat, that mission was pretty cool. Do you guys think that she really had a girlfriend in Paris, or was she just trying to escape?
Don't really need to know. That's one of the
She
cool parts of the characters is how she is like that.
That's
I mean,
fair.
I mean,
yeah.
like technically, canonically, she is bisexual, so like her having a girlfriend like would make sense. Like,
Oh, I'm not
yeah,
questioning her sexuality. I'm just questioning, did she lie about
no,
having a
no,
partner in Paris?
no. I didn't mean like you were questioning her sexuality. I just
Yeah,
mean
I
like
gotcha.
it is a feasible thing, but also she could have very well just been fucking around to get away. Like
If
Yeah,
that's
she
I
one.
did,
That's
then that
again,
one.
would be a Miles mistake that we've been wanting.
well, it's only a mistake if it has repercussions.
Yeah. Right.
Um, so if the next game has us going to Paris because Black Cat lied and she's just fucking around stealing shit there, well, now we know Miles made a mistake. He made an oopsie.
Yeah.
Um, we talked a little bit about. I'm kind of going off of characters now. I mean, we didn't talk about Genki either, and there's
This
not
was
really
so
much to talk
weird.
about with Genki.
For me, I just want to mention because Genki is in a lot of Eastern European culture. It's like a not pet name. I don't know what you would call it. It's just another name for grandmother.
Oh,
So every time they're like, "I'm going to talk to Genki," and I was like, Miles's grandmother is part of this, and then it's just like his friend at school. I'm like, you keep calling him grandmother, why? And it was just very fucking confusing to me. But other than
but
that, yeah, like he doesn't really play a major like he's on comms, but he doesn't
yeah,
have a major role in the
he,
story. Yeah.
he's the
The-
buddy character.
At the end when you save him and Rio, and he like goes off about how much he loves Miles and like tells him the truth about all these things he was hiding
Oh
from him.
yeah,
I thought
that
that
was
was
really
super
funny.
cute.
Yeah, that was really good.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we can dive into some side quests and side stuff like the rest of it, and then we can move on to combat and wrap this show
Mhm.
up. Some other side quests, like we were talking a little bit about the cultural museum side quest line. That was kind of Miles's quest, like side quest line versus Peter's the flame side quest line. I think Miles once again got the short end of the stick here. It was a cool side quest line. It was shorter and it didn't have like a big story implication or anything. It was just Miles doing another good thing for his community, which
Yeah.
we had a whole game about that. So
Right, which is like this as cool as, somebody stealing Charlie Parker's shit and going to find it is, like this could have been like an opportunity but a mission that shows, Miles going off the rails about Martin Lee or something like that.
or
And
just like
it also oh,
introduce another more personal villain to Miles that's like minor stakes that you could have him.
this is the problem is that Miles really the only like really Miles villain is the Prowler.
Right.
That's pretty
Yeah.
much it. This is kind of one of the problems with Miles is that they really haven't developed like his own rogues gallery. His out he very much is taking a lot from Spider-Man, which is one of the problems people have with it is he doesn't really have his own thing. I wish he would. I wish he would have his own rogues gallery outside of the Prowler. But
Hmm.
it also doesn't help his mother. His mother is a politician, so like you're essentially Spider-Man is essentially working for or Miles Morales as Spider-Man is now working for a politician. Kind of feel
Not
it made me
working
feel.
for her.
Yes, you are.
How?
She
That,
needs you to
that
fix shit in her jurisdiction, so Spider-Man comes in. It just it. Like, I'm being a bit facetious here.
Yeah,
Just
okay. Okay. All right.
I will say though, it is kind of weird that she's dating like a few months after her husband died.
No, this is like 2 years later, dude.
Oh, is it? I thought it was supposed to be
Yeah,
like a few
yeah.
months after. Okay.
No, no. Like Miles Morales was like a few months after the first game. This is like I think the fall semester the following year. So this is like a year or two later.
Okay. But again,
Also,
oh, sorry. Go ahead, Delilah.
no, no, go ahead. I'm pivoting.
All I was gonna say was like again, the dynamic with Miles' mother, who like we don't really get much. We get like snippets of it. If you had just made a Spider-Man 2 and then a Miles Morales 2, you could have like put a whole lot more time into, her getting into dating and maybe Miles getting pissed that and feeling like she's leaving her father behind or his father behind.
I just feel like
That
that
Make him into
wouldn't
an
be
angsty
Miles
teenager.
then. I don't know. I don't feel like Miles would get pissed about something like that
but it's
with
like
his
his
mom.
father's death is core to his character.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
you
but that
can.
doesn't mean that doesn't mean
I'm just throwing
mom has
that
got needs too, man.
I'm just throwing, yes, obviously, but like it's just a suggestion to characterize him more, which would require either a longer game here or a separate Miles Morales 2 for him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It just goes
I
to the
think we
overall
are gonna
issue
get
of
that.
bloat.
I think we are for sure. I just have a feeling that that's the direction we're going. Is we're gonna get more Miles characterization where he makes mistakes and has consequences and stuff like that. But I
Yeah,
feel
I
like
mean
he's still like a budding rose, you know?
to be fair, we did get Miles making mistakes in the Miles Morales game. Like it's not like he didn't make mistakes and fuck up in that game. That was part of that whole game's arc for him.
True.
It's just none of those were particularly um tragic mistakes, right? Like I agree with the idea of having made a mistake in this game that would have led to like some deaths or something, because the end result was, or the end reason behind that mistake was his hatred for Lee, or his desire for revenge against
Right.
Lee.
It would have
It's
made a
much higher
really
stakes,
cool.
right?
Would have made a really cool character arc that would have gotten me finally invested in Miles Morales. Yeah.
Look, we don't have to keep beating that dead horse though. Going back to his side quest line, it was cool, but he still got the short end of the stick. It was cool learning about a lot of African American musicians through that quest line as well.
Well, you didn't know about Charlie Parker?
No, I knew about Charlie Parker, but there were more people in the museum that you could read about, is what I'm
Oh,
saying.
I didn't.
Of course. But anyway, do I not know about Charlie Parker?
Yo,
Um
he threw a symbol at what's his
I
face's head.
know, Jason. I watched Whiplash. I love that movie.
Okay.
um anyway, other side quest stuff. There were like the quests around Brooklyn Visions, which some of them I thought were really, I like the one where you had to help the guy ask the other guy out to homecoming. I thought that was cute. Um and then I don't remember any of the others. You had to take some pictures of like different clubs or something. I found that one really annoying. And I don't remember any of the other quests for Brooklyn
Oh,
Visions.
so actually I like some of the photo quests because it like spoke to New York City culture a
Well,
little
the
bit.
photo ops I liked. It was just that side quest around Brooklyn Visions where you had to take pictures of like clubs or whatever.
Yeah,
That one I
right.
didn't like, but I liked the photo ops. I thought that was a cool way to reintroduce photography.
Yeah. I like that like they mentioned like chopped cheeses and like just spoke a lot to like New York City culture. I love how when you go to like to Coney Island Beach, there's a Sandman hand and they're like having a bonfire party on the Sandman hand. I thought that
Yeah.
was really cool. But you know, thinking about that quest, as cute as it was to see that guy propose to that guy or whatever, I feel like once again, like to Jason's point, that time could have been used to build on the characters that we have or the thousands of villains that we have in this story rather than focusing on some random NPC.
I mean, like I said, Miles is all of Miles' side quests. Like they don't move him forward as a character or serve any sort of big narrative purpose. Whereas Peter's did. The Flame side quest was huge.
Yeah.
Like there's a reason a lot of people are talking about that one, but not so much the Culture Museum side quest line or the Brooklyn Visions ones.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with that.
'Cause that was a long those were some long side quests, the Brooklyn Visions ones. I was like,
Yeah. Hey,
do we need to do
so
this?
so as a Philly guy, what the hell is a chopped cheese?
Oh my god, you need to eat a chopped cheese.
What is that? Like, what is a
It
chopped
is
cheese?
basically a burger sandwich. So it's
Oh
chopped up
fuck.
meat, like seasoned like a burger with cheese put into a hero.
Okay. A
Yeah.
hero. You mean a
A
hoagie roll.
hoagie, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
It's basically like a cheesesteak, but not with the cheese whip and with ground beef instead of
I'm sorry, that the cheese
instead
what?
the fucking cheese whip shit they put.
Cheese
I lived in
it's
Philly for a year.
cheese whiz,
Whiz,
sir.
whatever. I don't eat it
Whip.
because I don't eat cheese, but
You don't eat cheese?
I had a very traumatic experience seeing how cheese is made. Yes.
Oh dear.
Oh.
Okay. You saw how the sausage is made and
Yes.
okay, fair enough. Fair
We got
enough.
we I will get you a chopped cheese one day.
I'm all for it. This sounds delicious. I'll bring cheesesteaks from Philly. We'll have a
Yes.
great time.
Yes.
I maintain you cannot get a
I,
real
I,
true
had-
Philly cheesesteak outside of Philadelphia.
I had a cheesesteak without the
Agreed.
cheese, and everybody. I don't remember if it was Pat or Gino's I was at, but they gave me a look, and I was like, "Dude, just please."
What, your friends did or the people at the
No, the people.
establishment?
I don't remember if it was Pat or Gino's,
It was
but
probably Pat's. I'm a Geno's guy. Pat sucks. Throwing it out there. If any of our
Pat
listeners
steak's
are
like the generic cheese steak that you
yeah,
can get from anywhere.
I'm
Geno's has like this authentic.
Oh, Geno's rules. I maintain Geno's is a great place. I don't care if it's a tourist trap. I love Geno's. Pat sucks. I've eaten there twice. I will never eat there again. It's garbage and the people
Same.
are rude. Um just throwing it out there. Any of our listeners are Philly people. They know what I'm talking about. You better agree with me, otherwise I don't care.
Yeah.
Anyway,
But I thought this was great because listen, New York City, the staples, chopped cheese, bagels, pizza, Chinese food probably. And
yeah,
yeah,
I mean, I
maybe
really
halal
enjoy.
stands.
I was kind of thinking like to myself in the first game they had you taking pictures of landmarks, so you took pictures of a lot of buildings and like historical things around New York City, bridges and shit like that. So I was kind of like, they're not going to make us do that again, are they? And no, they found a really really good alternative. Instead of taking pictures of the landmarks, take pictures of the culture.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really smart way to go about that and make that into a more interesting collectible.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I totally agree. I thought that was really cool. Even as a non-New Yorker, that it's not like I can't understand the how a city's culture can be and how it can be different and interesting like that.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure. I will criticize though in terms of like the open world, which relates to like side quests and exploration is this is in October and New York City kind of goes hard for Halloween and fall and like there's like thousands of pumpkins everywhere and stuff like that. And I just felt like they really captured Christmas so well in Miles Morales that having this game take place in October without actually having any Halloween or fall decorations, especially in the suburbs of Forest Hills was kind of like a disappointment for me.
yeah, they kind of made it happen in the first game, right? You go to a Halloween party in the first one,
Yeah. But like
and
I would have
it's
liked to like swing around and like run into like a pumpkin or
mm,
something. I don't know. Jason, you well, you
I lived in Forest Hills, not in the
uh
suburbs. I lived by Austin Street, but yeah. No, I concur, but again, it's like there are also like if you really want to be nitpicky about like stuff, it's like in many ways there are aspects of the way the city is presented that are idealized. Like they kind of show Harlem. Harlem is very much a gentrified, like hipster place now. It's not Harlem like you typically think of Harlem, but they kind of preserve it and modernize it as if it had stayed the way it was. Like there's lots of little stuff like that, but overall the geography is like close enough for a video game. I don't need it to be fucking just like New York. Like Queens, like Forest Hills, like looks a little different, but like it's fine. It's the Spider-Man universe. Like I said in the beginning,
yeah,
it's kind of like if the idealized version of 60s, 70s New York was brought to today.
yeah.
yeah. Jason, did you find your house?
No. I'm way far. I'm bordering on Long Island now. I don't
Oh,
live
okay.
in that. Yeah.
Wow. All right.
And I don't even live in that. I live in an apartment complex, but like,
Oh well, did you?
yeah,
I'm just curious if you
I
went
live way
searching.
no, because I'm way beyond the boundaries of where the game
Gotcha,
cuts off
gotcha.
now.
He's
Yeah,
out of
Yeah,
bounds.
they didn't even show all of Queens. Like
yeah.
like
Queens is
Flushing
like
was absent.
if they had shown like an approximate, the way the game kind of sized everything, it would have been bigger than the rest of the map if they had done the entirety of Queens.
Yeah. Yeah, I get they can't add all of it, but like it would
Yeah,
have been cool to see like Arthur Ashe, like that big like giant globe thingy, and the swinging on that thing would have been cool. Or I don't know, Shea Stadium. I guess maybe licensing wise they couldn't have like the baseball field, but
yeah. There's a lot of stuff that they probably wanted to do, or there's a lot of stuff could do. It's just licensing, like so, like Central. Like you could have had a photo op if you're doing culture, like Central Perk. Like I'm pretty sure
yeah.
they have like obviously Central Perk was a set. It's Friends for people
Yeah.
who don't know what I'm
I
talking about.
yeah.
But I'm pretty sure that they did actually set up a shop somewhere around Central Park because there is other stuff you do in Central Park.
Yeah.
Um, but just because of licensing, you can't fucking put Central Park, I'm assuming, in there.
Yeah, probably not. Some other small bits of side content to go through real quick. I didn't really care much for the symbiote nests. I did like what they did with the hunter bases. The first game just kind of runs into like each faction has like 4 bases, and you go in and there's some challenges to do. Otherwise, you just kill everyone and move on. This like actually had some like busy work that you had to do to kind of find the base and scope it out a little bit, and then you could actually go into the bases and kind of take different approaches to taking everyone out. I don't know if you guys or I know Delilah did because she got the plat. I don't know if Jason, if you interacted with any of the hunter base stuff, but I thought the approach in this game was much better than the first, or at the very least, it was a lot less redundant.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
Um,
and like Delilah said earlier, a lot of those side quests build up to things.
Yeah,
Or
like there
yeah,
was definitely like a small story implication for at least as far as Craven's background and family and whatnot. I just think the design of those bases was much better and more improved than the last 2 games.
Yeah.
Because you kind of do some investigative work on what the bases are like, and then when you go, there's a few different things that you can do to actually help you along. And I think I actually did one of them entirely in stealth, and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed
Mhm.
it.
oh, of course, stealth is broken in this game, so yeah, you
Yeah,
yeah. But
stealth is
so
pretty
you could have
broken in this
easily
game.
done them all in stealth, but I just jumped in, did the combat. I
Yeah,
wasn't about the stealth in this game, but we'll talk about that when we talk about gameplay. Yeah.
yeah. I feel like there's not really much to say about the EMF experiment things that you do. That was kind of like the replacement for the Harry research stations in the first one, and you do kind of the same type of shit
Yeah.
here. It's
Yeah.
not nothing too
A few of the
crazy or
puzzles felt like they're not even puzzles. Like there's the one station you go to where you have to find a bunch of pipes around the building and then find a bunch of connectors to water the plant. And I
yeah,
felt like they went on for too long. But then there was only like a few of them. Most of them it was, and the same with like the Prowler stashes. Like there were a
Yeah.
few where the puzzle element of it went on a little too long, but for the most part, it was like finding one or two things and doing it real quick and picking up what you need to pick up.
I did like the conclusion of Prowler's whole thing was that he was moving in the same building
Yeah.
and like trying to reconnect. I thought that was a wholesome moment and a good direction to take for the character.
Yeah, also
Uh
Miles still not trusting him, thinking he's trying to steal his dad's shit.
yeah. Yeah, that was funny. But yeah, I enjoyed that. The last side thing that I want to talk about is Howard. Like
Yeah, that was so sad, dude.
that was a brutal side quest. Jason, did you do that one?
Which one are we talking about? Because the name is escaping
Howard
me.
the pigeon guy. He
No.
wanted you to find oh, okay. So he wanted you to find a new home for his pigeons because he was going on a trip. He was going on a journey, and you have the pigeons follow you, and you swing all around to a bunch of different places, and
They
you
had this
wind up.
music playing.
Yeah, I forget what song that was, but it was really good. The use of licensed music in this game was pretty good.
Mhm.
Had a much it
Oh
had a
my god.
much
during
What?
the in the beginning of the game, during when you go back to the high school,
Yeah.
they use the same song that gets used a couple times in Good Will Hunting, which I found fun. I
What,
laughed
the
just because
Shins song?
I think so. I
Oh,
don't
it's
know.
I know it was
The
used in
name escapes me.
Scrubs. It was used in an episode of Scrubs. Um,
It's when
but
you're in the basketball court and you're shooting hoops. It's the
yeah, yeah,
same
yeah.
music. Yeah.
It's new slang by the Shins.
Yeah,
Um,
I just was like, "Oh, that's the Good Will Hunting song." I couldn't for the life of me remember who actually sang it and what
um,
song it was.
but anyway, you take the pigeons to, I think, a place in Queens, and when you go back to Howard to let him know you found a new home for them, he had passed away, and EMTs were there picking him up.
Yeah, that
Uh,
was so sad.
really sad because Howard was a great guy that you got to connect with in the first one, and even a little bit
I
in the
kind of
second,
regret not
or in
doing that because
Miles.
that sounds very much like a Spider-Man. Like probably my favorite, ironically, my favorite side quest was the fireworks one, where the people are illegally sending off fireworks, but they
Oh
don't know
yeah,
it.
yeah,
And it just overall, even though it's not really like a big story or anything, it felt like a Spider-Man street level type thing. Like it felt the most
yeah,
Spider-Man-y
Yeah.
to me. Like you're just going, you initially think you're going to arrest these guys setting off fireworks, then they explode, and then there's a whole ring of people selling fucked up fireworks.
yeah.
And yeah, it's a very short thing, but it is like a very friendly neighborhood Spider-Man type feel to it. And it sounds like what you guys are talking about with the pigeons, a very similar thing. I kind of regret not encountering that one.
There was also that one. I don't know if you did this one, Jason. There was a rogue robot dog that you kind of reprogram and deliver to a blind woman as a seeing
Yeah,
eye dog. That one was pretty good.
Yeah.
Or as a service dog, I should say.
I will say a lot of those side quests are like because they have that very friendly neighborhood Spider-Man feel to them. They're kind of perfect as side quests.
Yeah, but and they also have the app, right? They have to have some friendly neighborhood stuff that could be delivered through the app.
Yeah,
Which I do think the app is really smart. I would think it was a really smart addition in Miles Morales. I think it's better here. What I was alluding to with the crimes is I don't like that crimes were treated as collectibles in the first two, and in here, again, they're just dynamic events. They don't show up in the app like they did in Miles Morales, and I think
hmm
that was smart. Just
Yeah.
yeah,
if you want to engage with them, you can. You don't have to for 100%.
and it
Yeah,
adds some dynamism to the open world.
Right, exactly.
they definitely keep getting better at making the side activities more digestible and rewarding.
For sure. For
Especially
sure.
considering like how wide of an audience they're making these games for. Because you
Yeah.
can kind of feel that in the story, like they have to kind of. I was actually surprised they had Venom straight up just bite Quinn's head off, considering kind of the market audience that they're going for. It's
Mm.
such a
Yeah.
wide audience.
Hey, I mean,
Yeah.
it's still rated T for teen, right? Spider-Man
Yeah,
2, ESRB. I'm pretty sure it's rated T for teen.
but in terms of like Delilah was saying, making it more digestible and also dynamic. Yeah, I agree that a lot. I think they overall did a pretty good job with the side content.
It's the first
Yeah.
game I platinum since Metal Gear Solid 3. I was on that high.
Wow.
Yeah.
Damn, dude.
Yeah. That was in like
That's a
February.
yeah. I mean, that's another nice thing about these games is they're pretty easy to plat, and 100% you
And
feel
it
pretty
doesn't
good
feel
after
like
you finish
work.
it. No, it doesn't.
Yeah. I'm tired of work. Yeah.
Tired of working for the trophies.
Yeah. I don't have time anymore.
Yeah, I hear you.
Oh,
Hmm,
there were just a few things about the open world that I wanted to mention before we move
go
on
for
into
it.
I guess it ties
Yeah,
into traversal.
yeah.
Um, we could glide on water now. Like it's not just like a area
Yeah.
that you can't access anymore, which was amazing. When I just got like I almost fell in water, I was like, oh man, and then I started gliding. I was like, oh, this is sick.
That
Uh,
was weird too. Like, how was he managing to do that? Because he's just like got his feet on the water and he's just kind of sliding across.
Jesus, I
What
don't
was the
know.
explanation for that? Like,
They're scientific geniuses. I'm sure they figured something out.
yeah, all right,
Green
sure.
Goblin tech, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure canonically, the only person smarter than Peter is Richard Reed in the comics, aka
Reed Richards.
or Reed Richards. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Why the fuck did I just say Richard Reed?
Richard
God,
Reed. Yeah,
Reed Richards.
Mr.
Sorry,
Fantastic.
Mister
Mr.
Fantastic. Yes, the Fantastic Four. I'm pretty sure he's the only one canonically that's supposed to be smarter than Peter. But Anyway,
Yeah.
Wingsuit, obviously great addition to making you get from one place to another. Having those little wind tunnels to get from one place to another even faster was really cool.
Yeah.
Being able to get that like really high jump on the city to get that aerial view was really nice. A lot more opportunities for that. It's just really good traversal, and it just like you said before, Mark, just how much technology went into this game. I mean, there were reflections on balloons in that section with Harry in the school on the green and silver balloons. You could see like legit ray tracing on there. It was great. It was insane. And then the
Yeah.
damage visible on suits, like if you got like burned, you would see burn marks on the suit. If you got shot, you would see shot marks. If you fought Sandman, your suit would be full of
yeah.
sand. Even the city having damage done to it, where if you go back to the place where there was a major fight, it's still going to be damaged until New York City repairs it. The only one I didn't notice that for was Coney Island. I felt like Coney Island got repaired like pretty much instantly, but
Yeah,
like
it
when you
was pretty fast.
yeah, but when you went back to like Times Square after like Venom and Craven fought, Times Square was still being rebuilt and things like that. I thought that was just really impressive overall. How they had like paid so much attention to little details.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
I kind of felt bad that apparently so for those who don't know, like in a lot of reviews, because the review copies were such a technical marvel, they were able to do all this, like Delilah said, attention to detail with virtually no bugs. A lot of reviews said, it was like a uniquely great release, and then unfortunately the day one patch caused a lot of endemic bugs, like and most of that, from my understanding, is fixed by now. But I kind of felt bad for Insomniac precisely because of what Delilah was saying. Like, from a purely technical perspective, it is a beautiful game and it is amazing. Like Mark said earlier with the fast travel, how it just shoots you right in there.
Well,
And
I think what's impressive is I'm pretty sure Insomniac they don't crunch, and they kind of make a big deal about that. Rightfully so, because today it's a rarity in this industry. Um, so it is kind of crazy that they put out a game that was this polished and this technically impressive, and they didn't crunch to do it. And in a, I mean, not short, but not particularly long amount of time, right? Miles Morales was the last game, the last Spider-Man game they put out, seemingly the last game that the same team was working on, and that came out in 2020. This came out 3 years later, not even. Um, and like you also consider Insomniac developed Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, which came out, is that last year or 2 years ago at this point? Is that 2021?
I think it was
I
2 years
don't
ago.
remember.
Yeah,
Okay, you might be right.
Yeah.
God, that fucking time flies, man. I
I
can't believe
know.
that was 2 years ago. But anyway, like it's just it's crazy, like how much Insomniac as a studio is able to accomplish without any of the bad stuff. Um,
Yeah.
And I think they even said that like the game was fully playable without the patch, but the patch, fix a lot of bugs.
Yeah.
Um and overall, like I didn't run into too many issues. I can't remember if I
I
had
had
any
some
major.
I had some hard crashes. I had the one where it turns you into a block.
Oh,
Yeah.
you had
I
that? Okay.
Yeah.
I saw that
This is why I feel
that
bad,
glitch.
because apparently the review copies were spotless, and then people started bitching on the internet because it was very buggy at launch because
Mm.
of the day one patch. The day one patch
Okay, okay.
introduced the bugs. There's been patches since, but
Yeah, yeah.
I kind of feel
Yeah.
bad for the guys at Insomniac because it's like you have this review copy that's pristine, and then you introduce a patch that like breaks everything on day one. Not
Yeah.
everything. I'm being
Oh, like
hyperbolic,
things,
but
yeah. I will say that like I think I might have actually had one hard crash in this game. Not as many as I had on Spider-Man Remastered when I recently played that.
Mm,
That game crashed on me like 5 or 6 times.
damn.
I cannot even begin to explain that, but it crashed on me a ton. I think Miles Morales. I played the PS4 version of Miles Morales in preparation for this, and that crashed on me a couple times.
Yeah. I had a few bugs, but not too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will also say I wish that somehow Insomniac would find a way to warn you when you're getting locked out of changing suits or doing side quests, because the way having New York City taken over by the symbiote and then going to a cookout to do one of Miles' side quests just didn't make sense. Like, okay, we're having a cookout, but yet there's like
An
an
alien
apocalypse
invasion.
happening, an
Yeah.
alien invasion, right?
Yeah, that's kind of
Um,
the disconnect with, video game storytelling is like give a low stakes side quest when the apocalypse is happening, but what are they gonna do? Prevent you from doing that side quest?
Yeah, I mean they did in some sequences they did lock me out of certain things, and
Mm.
one thing that they did lock me out of that kind of pissed me off was suits. Like I wanted to change into a specific suit as Miles for a story point, and I was in this goofy suit because they wouldn't let me switch out. I wish they would have joined, they would have warned me or
Yeah,
something.
there are other gameplay tied elements like that. So, for instance, the Venom suit powers are you can upgrade them on the tree, but I assumed story wise that they would eventually take the Venom powers away. Obviously, the twist is you get an anti Venom suit, so those upgrades still apply to that. I wish
Yeah.
I'd known that because I didn't upgrade the Venom shit at all. Because specifically
Right.
because I anticipated losing it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I figured I kind of made I wasn't sure how they were gonna make it make sense, but I kind of figured if they're on the skill tree and you can permanently put points into them, they're not going to take them away from you permanently. And I kind of didn't know how they were going to pull that off. Are they just going to strip your symbiote powers away from you and you just never get them again? Because that doesn't make sense. I feel like they wouldn't do that. And then anti-venom, okay, that made sense, and I found out that that's actually a Spider-Man thing that's happened in the
Well,
comics too. So
it's Eddie Brock, I believe, becomes
it
anti-venom.
it
But yeah,
I
yeah,
just mean anti-venom is like a thing. I was
yeah.
kind of sitting there like, is this like some hokey thing that they came up with for this game? No,
No,
anti-venom
no, it's a
exists in the
thing.
comics.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, so but that kind of made it make sense. You even got some new venom powers from that too, if I remember
Hmm.
correctly. The one where you
Yeah.
kind of like spin up and go and
And
the
it's kind of a shame that I didn't upgrade them because of the Venom ability. I mean, we talked about how much fun the Venom segment was. The Venom abilities, in my opinion, were the most fun in the game. I just
Yeah.
never
yeah.
used them really because I never upgraded them.
Yeah, I do think it was really funny that Peter spent time to like make his own little Doc Ock arms that come like
Yeah.
but he basically already had that because if you got the Iron Spider suit in the first game, like it came with that power up.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, Peter, good for you. You got some spindly arms.
Yeah. The other weird thing about the symbiote power is you can change your suit while having the symbiote, the black like what should
Right.
be the black suit or the
I thought you were
anti-venom.
I thought you were locked into
You
having a
No,
black
weren't. I
suit.
tested it for
no.
science and you can
For
have the
science.
advanced suit on
Yeah,
while doing the symbiote powers and it's
Wow.
stupid.
I mean, to be honest, like I the only suit I purchased was just the classic Spider-Man suit, just so I could have the actual Spider-Man suit the entire game. Yeah, I wore it when I was Venom. I guess that's something from in the original. The suits had abilities kind of tied to them, which they
Yeah.
don't here. Um,
Yeah, they
which
kind of change up the progression,
yeah,
which
it's good and bad. Like I can see people complaining like suits don't mean as much, so there's no reason. Like I didn't get
I
any
mean,
other
I
ones.
don't when people were buying suits in the first one, I'm pretty sure it wasn't so they get like a cool extra power. I'm pretty sure it was so they could dress up as Spider-Man 2099 or so they could wear the
Yeah,
Spirit Spider costume
it's
or
not a
whatever,
huge thing, and ultimately, I think the skill tree, especially having the shared one, um, so that you didn't feel like you were fucking over Miles or Peter by investing in one versus the other.
Yeah.
Um, the skill tree was definitely, I think, a better way to go.
Yeah, I like the skill tree a lot better. I focused initially on both of them, but then when I started to see like, oh, at a certain part of the story, I think I'm gonna have to fight Peter as Miles. I started pouring points into Miles. Or when I was the symbiote, I was like, oh, give me all the Venom abilities. So
Yeah.
I liked that I was able to be dynamic in what I upgraded based on where I thought the story might have been going or who I was gonna be playing as.
So I've got a couple issues I want to bring up.
As do I. Yeah.
The first one pertains to progression, and then the next one can be our segue into combat. So the first thing is that I just feel like a lot of the upgrades in these skill trees, um, they don't matter, and you just wind up getting a lot of things in your kit that you never use.
That's true.
Like there were a lot of because like you wind up having most of the stuff that you ended up having at the end of Spider-Man 1, even after you upgrade your skill trees in that game. And this one was like, okay, well now you can web dudes up and then move them left or right into things. It's like, oh, goody. That's something I'm gonna use once and then forget that I can do, because why would you want to do that?
So
Yeah.
there are a lot of like weird ones like that, but there are also I can see how they were trying to create builds. So like there's like a bunch of abilities you can upgrade both in the share tree and independently to focus on making like an air juggling build, for instance, or a pure ground build, or an AoE like a crowd control build to bring all your enemies together. I can see what they were going for.
See, but I
Ultimately, I agree with you that the way the combat works functionally in practice, it doesn't really matter. Yeah.
I kind of reject the notion of they enable you to build builds out for these characters when the level cap is 60 and you level up pretty much after every main mission.
No, no, no. I get
You're
what you're
not really
saying.
building out a build. You're just deciding which ability to prioritize before the next until you max
Right,
everything out.
because essentially you can do a lot of that stuff without upgrading or getting those abilities, but it makes them more effective, or it refills meters faster by doing those specific things. I'm
You
trying to
know what my
like
next
play.
you know well, do you know
I'm
what my next complaint's gonna be?
Yes, I'm playing devil's advocate here because I probably agree with you with a lot of the issues with combat and progression.
Well, here we go with my next issue with combat. Cooldown timers, guys. We've got cooldown timers again. Why, oh why do we have cooldown timers? This was a problem it wasn't even this was a problem they decided to create all of a sudden, because the first game didn't have cooldown timers on anything. Well,
You had
actually,
items.
yeah, your special ability did. No, your items were
No,
earned
no, no,
from.
no, no. I mean, like most of the things that were abilities here were items, like where you had an amount, right? If I remember correctly.
Yeah, but I'm talking
Yeah.
about your skills, like the
No, no,
symbiotes,
no, no,
the
no.
symbiote skills, your venom skills,
Yeah,
all
yeah,
those
yeah,
skills in this game were all tied to time, not to skill, not to performing well like they were in the first two games.
yeah,
And
yeah. I get
Miles
you.
Morales had like the perfect solution to this. You beat up dudes, you fill up a bar, and that bar enables you to use a skill. Some of your skill point abilities or some of your skills that you put skill points into, make it so that you regain that venom bar faster if you do certain things. That's smart, good combat design, because it means if you play well, you get rewarded with cool, interesting, fun moves that do things that you want them to do. Cooldown timers just mean you wait. It's not
Yeah,
interesting.
I agree, and I don't like the offset where like so in terms of going to what you're saying, rewarding skill, your reward for skill is you can use that bar that you build up to either heal yourself or do a one hit finisher,
Yeah.
which I agree.
I
There's
think I think that's good.
Yeah, I love that addition.
well,
Be
I'm saying instead of the one hit finisher, which I rarely even used, just have that for skill or for skills like
Yeah, that's
it's
fine
skill
too.
expenditure.
I'm
I
I'm all
that
good with that.
that's what I'm saying. And like I
Yeah.
agree with what you're saying about
I
the skills. Yeah.
actually think that there was a timer for the skills, but it wasn't just based on time, because I noticed that whenever I did a perfect dodge or did a perfect parry,
There
that
were
it would
Th-
I would
th-
get my skill back
yeah, that's what I
quicker.
was
there
saying
were
about
skills that
builds.
you
There
could
were
learn, and
options. Yeah.
yeah, I think there were a couple skills in the skill tree that you could learn that would recharge your abilities faster. But
Right.
it's still it's still good cooldown timers.
That's why I
It's
said like a lot of skills that focus on aerial juggling will cause your meters to build faster when you're specifically hitting enemies in the air and
I,
doing
I
unbroken air combos. Yeah.
I hate throwing this word out there, but the cooldown timers are the laziest way to balance your gameplay, to balance your combat. There were better ways to go about this, and
Oh,
I don't
I
like that they
agree.
resorted to cooldown timers.
Think
Um,
yeah, I don't disagree. I think it comes down to a simplicity and accessibility thing.
Yes.
I
Yes.
guess, yeah,
Like I was saying before, they've got a really wide audience they're targeting with this game.
yeah.
So like if you really want like that in-depth combat system, this
Well,
probably isn't going to be the place to find it.
to be fair, this game also does have like a slew of difficulty choices. So
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, I played on amazing difficulty, which is supposed to be like the normal. I actually found this game a lot more challenging than the first two,
Yeah,
which was
especially in
good.
the boss fights. I really enjoyed like how they implemented the parry system. Like
Yeah,
you couldn't just like you had to like you couldn't just spam dodge, you couldn't just spam parry. You had to like really observe and if it was a blue, you had to dodge. If it was a red, you could parry.
yeah,
Um
which is just like, it's color coding your combat, which there's an argument to be made against that. But with how fast paced this combat is, I get it, and I'm not totally opposed to it. Jason, looks like when Delilah said parrying, your eyes lit up. What do you have
It
to
was
say?
unnecessary to add parrying, especially considering like between just natural input lag and the fact that the flashes, it is not a universal time that you have. Each enemy is the amount of time you have between hitting the parry button and the dodge button, and when their attack lands differs. This goes to bosses. Also considering they do stupid shit towards the end of the game, like with the final Venom fight, he'll have an attack that starts as a dodge, but it's meant as a trick to trick you into
Mm,
getting locked into dodge and then becomes parry, which I just think is fucking stupid.
mhm.
Um, I actually liked better like with the Martin Lee, the Mr. Negative fight, rather than having it be a dodge or a parry, you jump over his attacks.
Yeah.
yeah,
I found that to be much better. It should have just been a single button. Um, there's just too much visual noise going. There's enough visual noise going on already. Where adding another type of essentially blocking to that,
yeah. Adding another complexity to the combat.
it's not even complexity. It's just visual noise. Like there's so much shit
Mhm.
going on the screen already.
Yeah,
A sucker for parries. I mean, no one does it like Sekiro, but
Yeah, like
I could appreciate a parry
again,
implemented.
to play devil's advocate, I guess to myself, I get what they're doing. They're trying to add complexity to the combat, but it just ends up being more annoying than anything.
I mean, I could take it or leave it, right? Like I thought it was, it's definitely unnecessary, but I didn't think it was like offensively frustrating or anything. I picked up on the combat mechanics easily, and like the new combat mechanics, including this parry, easily enough. What I mostly just, I feel like the button mapping just kind of threw me off.
Yes, the
Um,
fact that you're basically hitting things at opposite sides of the controller.
yeah, but I'm also kind of used to that. After playing, however many hours of Devil May Cry this year. I'm used to having buttons all over the place and tapping them every which way on the controller.
Yeah. Like I really enjoyed the boss fights overall, like popping off with Lizard and Mr. Negative, who's now Mr. Positive, um, and Craven, them fighting Peter with Miles. Just that last sequence of the entire game was just firing on all cylinders. It just
Hmm.
the pacing was super fast, maybe too fast, but like I just felt like excited that entire time. Even fighting Scream was really cool, and then ending with Venom. Like I just enjoyed all of the boss fights. I thought there was enough difference in the boss fights in terms of the arenas and like the attack patterns that didn't make it feel like you were just spamming parry or dodge all the time. Like having to use the environment a little bit for specific boss fights made them kind of dynamic. So I just
Lizard was kind of the peak for that for me.
yeah, Lizard
Like,
was such a
yeah,
good boss fight.
yeah.
Yeah, I loved all of
Um,
that.
I
I
felt
think
that oh, sorry.
no, go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
Jason. Go ahead.
All I was gonna say was like mechanically, I liked the fights. I felt like they did drag on a little too long though.
Oh, they were
The
long. They were like
bosses,
1,000
Yeah. Yeah, they
yeah,
have like,
1,000 bars.
I fucking hate that whole thing where like a video game is like, here's the boss's health bar, and you reduce it to 0, and then a cutscene happens, and they have 100% of their health again. Like
yeah,
just make it a segmented health bar. Just make it like you get them down to 75%, and then the cutscene happens, and then they're still at 75%. Like make it feel like an epic fight. Don't make it feel like I beat the boss 4 times until the game moves on.
yeah. It especially got bad towards the end as I'm more upgraded, and I'm basically just animation slash stun locking the bosses over and over by rotating abilities and punching them with combos to the point where I've already killed them, but like it's waiting for them to unlock their animations so I can get to the cutscene. And I was
Yeah.
playing on normal. Um, the difficulty curve for me, Mark, you said you had more difficulty here than either the previous two. I felt like the first half of the game, every time I got hit, like I lost more than half my health and then
Mhm.
got animation locked into death. I didn't die very much, but it felt like super punishing just to get hit once. And then
Yeah.
somewhere around the halfway mark, once you've upgraded your health and damage enough,
Yeah.
that's another thing is how little damage I should say your punches do in the beginning. It felt like you felt weirdly weak for the first half of the game and then way too strong in the latter half. I felt like the bouncing curve there. And maybe it's just because I was playing on normal and it's meant to be more accessible. I don't know. But it
Um
was just like a sudden once I hit a certain point with health and damage, like I was just stun locking and AoEing everything into oblivion, and it was just kind of started feeling just repetitive.
Something I did mean to bring up when you brought up, like, the focus bar that you charge up to use finisher moves or heal yourself. I like the change that they made where to heal yourself, you need to have a full bar. You can't use a partial bar.
Right.
I think that really added into making this game more challenging and reward. It adds a
Yeah.
significant risk reward factor to the game, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah,
I
I
think it
got
was
pissed at
smart.
myself when I would press the finisher button by accident when I really needed to heal because I just couldn't help myself because I saw the things above their head. I'm like, I gotta press it, and then I would die because
The
I
game
was
is
stupid.
prompting me. It's
Yeah,
goading
it's
me.
prompted. God damn it. Yeah.
Um, I think that's kind of all there is to it. I don't know that there's much more else other than the final question. Is there anything else you guys want to bring up?
I guess
Okay.
just oh sorry, go ahead, Delilah.
No, what I wanna bring up is silly. I just
Okay.
some moments, little tiny details that I loved. I love how in one of the side quests, it was like a Puerto Rican woman, like, sitting on her deck, and she had, like, this candle with Jesus on it. Oh
Uh-huh.
my god, that looks exactly like 1,000 candles I've seen in Puerto Rican women's houses.
Yeah.
It was so accurate. Yeah, I had to say that. Also, I loved when and I feel like people might hate this, but I thought it was really funny when when Peter was like becoming more angsty in with with the black suit
Mhm.
and he says to that bear enemy, he goes, "I'm sorry, I'm out of honey." I don't know why I thought that was so funny.
No, I thought
Because
that was good.
it's a pretty standard Peter Parker quip.
Peter Parker
Yeah,
fun.
it was so good. Anyway, yeah, that's all I had to say.
That's really good. Oh,
Oh
I did want to bring up, I don't know about you guys. I was cracking the fuck up when at the beginning of the game after the Sandman fallout when you're like helping people around the city for a bit, there's a guy stuck in a limo and you rescue the guy and it's Jameson.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
I found that so fucking funny.
And
I
then he's
couldn't believe it.
complaining about you rescuing him.
Yeah, he's like, what's going on? Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's another one of those few characters where I really do appreciate how close they stuck with his depiction in these games to the source
Mhm.
material. They do
Yeah.
Jameson really well.
And then when
Yeah.
they when they found out that he found out there was another Spider-Man, he was like saying that Peter was like, well, not Peter, but like, oh, the old Spider-Man is grooming this new Spider-Man. I was like, grooming? It's so good.
Well, I did find it really disappointing that you can't re-listen to the podcasts like you could in the first game in Miles.
Oh yeah, that would have been
There
cool to hear.
Yeah, because well, there were a lot of instances. This might have been a glitch or something, but there were a lot of instances where one would start playing and then randomly stop, and usually that happens when you start engaging in like an activity.
Yeah,
But
like with the
like,
phone calls with the for the main story or the side
yeah,
quests. Yeah,
or just like a crime happens, you start to fight some dudes. If you're listening to something, it turns off.
Yeah.
But like this is just like when I'm swinging around, not near anything, something would start and then immediately stop, and I'm like, what the fuck? I wanted to listen to that.
Yeah.
And there's no way to re-listen to them, so I feel like I missed out on a lot of those podcast episodes,
Yeah, I
for
agree.
no good reason.
I agree. I
um,
have one more point. I'm sorry. I
Go
keep like
ahead.
this
No,
is
no,
no
my
no. Go
problem.
last
ahead.
one, I promise.
Go ahead.
Um I like how when even on like random crimes or like side activities, how like if you're playing as Peter, Miles would show up or vice versa. I thought that was a really cool detail. Like I liked
Mhm.
seeing the other Spider-Man in the distance doing his thing. I thought that was
Yeah,
fun.
and I really liked after the flame side quest, Wraith will join in on crimes with you and stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah, she did.
I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I'm done,
Um,
I promise.
Well, that kind of stuff.
I'm gonna have
That. Oh, sorry. What was that?
no, go ahead, Jason. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that kind of just adds on to what I was saying and what you mentioned earlier about like the potential of having like ambushes where you get ambushed by like Craven or whatever in the open
Yeah,
world. Because one thing I was going to mention was just the lack of enemy variety, where essentially you're fighting the same three enemies reskinned, either as street thugs, Craven hunters, or symbiotes.
symbiotes.
You just got the grunts, the ranged, and the brutes, and that's pretty much
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Outside of the bosses, they they really in the next game need to focus on more enemy, more dynamic
Well,
enemies,
it's
or more
funny
variety, I
because
should say.
it's funny because the first game in Miles had that. Like every faction felt pretty distinct. And you had to employ different strategies to fight a lot of them.
That's true.
Um, yeah, you're right. I kind of didn't put it together that the enemy variety kind of takes a hit here.
I think that's
And
one of the reasons why I felt like I was getting bored with the combat,
mm,
like towards the latter half of the game, because I realized I'm just fighting the same three things
yeah.
reskinned. I'm doing the same exact thing, and I'm just like you said before with the cooldowns. I'm just pushing everything on cooldown. Just
Yep.
fucking yeah,
Pop
and
them and wait. That's all it is.
Yeah.
and yeah. I mean, the combat is like it's had some fun. It's definitely competent. It's not bad. It's just not like the greatest thing there ever either. Like
I
Yeah.
feel
even
like
like even comparing to its obvious inspiration, the Arkham games, like, and I
mhm.
couldn't really articulate this in our podcast on the first one. I went back and listened. I
Hmm.
couldn't articulate why I didn't love the combat as much as you guys did. And I think it's just a combination of in the Arkham games with the audio design and the animations, you feel the hits more. Whereas here, because it's so fast and there's so much shit going on,
Yeah.
it kind of feels like taps. It's not as visceral as the Arkham combat, which is why
Yeah,
I think I
I
like
see
it
that.
more.
Yeah,
But
Yeah.
I think I agree that they definitely took the hit with like the regular enemies, but I feel like it improved with the boss fights
yeah,
overall.
like I
Hmm.
said, if they had just not done the whole refilling the health bar and the boss fights had been a bit more condensed, like mechanically they were fun enough. Yeah, it's just I felt like they just dragged sometimes, just because you see that bar, you get it down, then
10,000 health
cutscene, fill it up.
bars.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Are we good to move on to the final question?
Yeah.
Gonna have a
Yeah,
regular segment. I'm gonna call it Delilah's final words. It's where you come in with all your final notes that you're like, wait, I have one more
Just like
thing.
random things that I wanted to talk about that don't come up naturally in
No,
conversation.
I like it though. I appreciate it a lot because you
yeah.
usually bring up like some really interesting details that if I did notice, I forgot to articulate, and the fact that you have them written down and ready to go, I appreciate it a lot.
Thank you.
Um, all right, final question. So we know that Insomniac is developing a Wolverine game, and we know now that that is also taking place in the same Earth, the same universe, whatever Earth
Wait,
1048.
is it? Oh no.
What is the problem? What does the matter? Jason, what's wrong? Tell
Oh,
us.
just continue. I
Well,
didn't know that. That
my
makes me sad.
quest. Why does it make you sad? No, I want to know why that makes you sad. The final
Because
question is,
as
why
I
does that
said,
make Jason sad?
all right, fine. Because so like Spider-Man, I respect why he's a popular and enduring character. Personally, I can take or leave Spider-Man, but like characters like Wolverine, and now it's been rumored in the DLC, Daredevil, I've always cared about far more in the Marvel universe. Um, and those are characters that require a lot more darkness and grit than I think they're willing to go to in
Well,
this universe.
hold on. Because to be clear, it happens in the same Earth. That doesn't mean like Wolverine's barreling through the same New York. Like, seemingly Wolverine's going to be in his own place doing his own thing. That game will probably be rated M for mature. It probably will lean into some
Hopefully.
darker things, some darker territory. And it's not like Insomniac hasn't done stuff like that before.
No. I'm not saying they can't do stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying if they're trying to keep it in this same world, I guess this also applies way more to Daredevil because of the rumored DLC that
Well,
Daredevil will show up in
let's
this.
talk about
Yeah.
that, because I haven't heard that there's rumored Daredevil DLC. I just saw that the placard with Matt Murdock was removed in a patch, and then it was re-added in a patch, and
Yeah,
they've kind of been teasing around the idea. I don't think Daredevil will be a DLC. I think that if they're gonna do Daredevil, it'll be a game for Daredevil. I think
Yeah,
that makes
it
more
has
sense.
to be.
Yeah, I think that would make more
And
sense.
and I think if anything, that's one reason why we haven't seen Fisk. We saw him obviously in the first game,
Yeah.
but we didn't see him at all here. I would
Yeah.
assume that if they are leaning towards doing Daredevil stuff, they're saving it for that, especially because with Fisk, you really do you got to Daredevil with Wolverine with these characters, you got to go much darker than
Yeah,
I
right.
mentioned before. I was surprised that they even had Venom biting off Craven's head.
Yeah.
Um, it's a different audience.
Yeah.
Right, but just because it's in the same universe, like, it's Earth 1048. It's not New York City 1048, right? Like,
Right, like
there's a whole world.
I know.
There's a whole
I,
planet.
the
I'm just
MCU
worried.
has like its darker tone shows versus its
Yeah.
typical superhero stuff. And I think that Haley's little side activity might be them playing with the idea of a Daredevil game since, you know, she's deaf.
Well, Daredevil's blind, right?
Yeah, he's blind.
Right, but like kind
You're
of
like
sorry. I'm not saying that Daredevil's deaf. Let me clarify.
I
Just
get what you're
using like
saying.
the like
gameplay
using
with a disability.
gameplay with a disability. Yes.
Okay.
I don't think they would do that. Like, just have you see things as Daredevil see things, simply because, like, I don't know how you would make that would throw a lot of people off. It would be difficult to play because everything is the same color essentially.
Yeah.
Sorry, Delilah. I didn't mean to, like,
No,
to put you
I
on the
didn't
spot like
explain
that.
myself very well. I didn't.
I get the point you were trying to make, though.
Yeah.
Anyway, my point with this final question that I'm trying to get to is, like, yeah, we're getting a Wolverine game. It's in the same universe. I feel like it doesn't. I'm sure they'll go with like a more mature route for Wolverine. I mean, from that initial trailer, I feel like it's almost confirmed, and I think they even said that they are going for a more
Yeah, they
mature
did.
tone with that. Yeah, okay. So, like, and if we got a Daredevil game, I'm sure they would do the same thing. My question is, and keep in mind, Daredevil is by no means confirmed. They're kind of dancing around it. They're kind of teasing it. It might also just be playing into fan paranoia, where they saw that the sign was removed, it was added back in, and they're like, "Oh, we can mess with them now," because they're all speculating about this. There's no guarantee we're getting a Daredevil thing at all. But my
No,
question is
again, just a rumor that I heard.
right. My question is there any other hero that you'd like to see Insomniac tackle? Any other Marvel superheroes? Any other Marvel properties
I mean,
that you think
honestly,
they could
after
pull off?
seeing that Black Cat section with the portals, I wouldn't mind seeing how they could implement that into a Doctor Strange game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Honestly, I wouldn't mind. I don't know how they would do it at this point, because the symbiote was totally destroyed at the end of the game, right?
Well, there's another one. Well, no. Yeah, was it destroyed
The
or was it
I thought
contained?
they put it in the particle accelerator and it completely destroyed
Oh
it.
yeah, okay. Well, there's still the one that Cletus Cassidy has. So
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, anyway, all I was going to say was, given how fun the Venom segments were, I wouldn't mind seeing just a Venom game. But in terms
Mm.
Okay.
of outside of that, I mean, I want to see how they tackle the Wolverine game first.
Okay.
Um, I mean, in terms of gameplay, like, because the Wolverine game is also going to have to be like way more visceral and what's the word I'm looking for? Not sluggish, but like the combat is going to have to feel like to
It's going to
really
have a lot more
capture.
weight.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
like it's definitely going to have a lot
It's
more
going to be
weight.
interesting to see how they do that, but I want to see how they do the Wolverine first
Okay.
before.
I would
But I agree that the way they use that technology, it is kind of a cool little tech demo for what a potential Doctor Strange thing could look like.
yeah. Uh I think it would be really cool to see uh a Fantastic Four game and actually like, do the promise of Gotham Knights but do it right.
Oh gosh.
Um I think that could be cool. I think Insomniac might be able to pull that off.
Yeah.
Um, because they're just a really creative studio. I have my qualms with their output in the past decade or so, just because of my love for early Ratchet and how I feel like that series has kind of lost its way. But I never denied that they're a really good studio, really creative studio, and I think
I mean,
you could give the
speaking about that with Ratchet, like um potential heroes that can play into that kind of experience in terms of gameplay. Obviously, this would be another one that would have to be darker, but the Punisher, um,
oh,
who am I thinking of? Fuck, from X-Men. Oh shit, he was in. Josh Brolin played him in the Deadpool movie. Why can't I remember his name?
uh Cable,
Cable,
yeah,
yeah, like Cable. There are a lot of like more shooting focused heroes like that they could pull in and draw on that Ratchet and Clank. Um, history third person shooting. I don't know, or they could
yeah,
do over the shoulder. There's a lot of different things they could do.
yeah.
I don't know.
I think.
I'm curious how they do the Wolverine.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess it remains to be seen, like, outside of Spider-Man, and Wolverine, like, Wolverine has to come out, they have to kinda, I guess, prove that they can do other, Marvel superhero properties before they start getting any more, unless the Daredevil thing is real, but we'll see.
I don't even know. Like, again, it's a rumor, but like thinking about that, how would it differ very much aside from lack of web slinging? Just the basics of combat from Spider-Man.
What, with Daredevil?
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm just
yeah,
thinking about that.
I don't know.
It's not.
That's a
I
good
don't think it
question.
would even be really worth it for them as a studio to do that.
I mean, I would imagine they would have to implement, like, some sort of sound mechanic for his
Right.
sight to work and stuff, so, yeah, it could be interesting. It remains to be seen.
Yep.
And that's all we got for this episode of Read the Spoils. Jason, what is the Kwasnicky rating?
Hmm. I'll give it a solid 6. It's definitely not a 5.
Wow.
It's not average. For people who don't know my scale, 5 is average. Um, it's not.
He uses the full scale.
It ex, it does excel in some areas, like the we talked about the technical marvel of it, just recreating the city and the traversal. Felt like combat was lacking some areas, and obviously, I don't want to beat the dead horse, but um, the story I had issues, but like I feel about it kind of the same way I felt like the first one. Like I played it, I probably won't remember much of it by the time the next one comes out. But again, it's also I'm not like nearly attached, as I said, to Spider-Man as probably Delilah is. Like
So six what
I care
though?
more about other
Oh,
characters.
shit. Delilah's right. Six what?
6 symbiotes
Okay. Six symbiotes out of 10. There we go.
or 6 G serums. I don't know. 6 shots
Jeez.
of
No, no,
G
no, no,
serum.
no. You
Six
said symbiotes.
Spider-Mans.
I don't know.
Six six Spider-Men.
6 Spider-Man.
Six spider people. Okay, there you go. There you have it. Anything else you guys want to bring up before we end the show?
Fun game.
Yeah. There you go, guys. Fun game. Box quote right there. Delilah, you got anything to plug?
I have a full playthrough of this game on YouTube. It's releasing every other day, so
There you
it should
go.
be done in like a few weeks.
All right. So
Yeah.
by the time this episode comes out, I mean, she'll still be in the midst of posting those. So if you want to watch someone else play the game, you got Delilah right there.
Yeah.
Assassina Dash San on YouTube.
Yes.
I got nothing to plug. Jason, you got anything to plug?
I got a haircut. Well, I cut my own hair,
Nice.
but
Attaboy. Yeah, you trimmed up the beard too. I didn't even notice that. You're looking
I
fresh, my
told you.
friend.
When you
Yeah.
pointed it, all right.
Yeah,
Never mind.
yeah. You know, you said that, but like I'm still I'm still in like cloudy head mode, man. So like you said it and I didn't register that. Oh yeah, you did trim up your
I'll
beard.
forgive you.
Good. That's good. You're looking mighty fresh, my friend. I gotta say, looking good. If you liked this episode and you listen on YouTube, thank you so much. Please give the episode a like, subscribe to the channel, leave us a comment, tell us, you know, what you thought about this game. Tell us if you hated cooldown timers as much as I did.
You
Um,
always hate cooldown times. I knew you were
yeah,
going to bring it up.
yeah, this is like my new thing now, is that I'm so fucking sick of cooldown timers. But anyway, if you listen to this episode on Apple Podcasts, thank you so much. Please rate and review the show. 5 stars preferred. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you didn't like. It really, really helps when you comment and like the episode and rate and review the show. It really, really helps. It helps for visibility. It helps make me feel really good. Especially when you give us those sweet, juicy 5-star ratings. So please, please do that. It really, really helps. And make sure you share the show. Anyone that you think would be interested in our hours-long ramblings.
Pantheon of
The
episodes.
pantheon of Reap the Spoils. If anyone that you know that would enjoy our show, please share it with them. Share the good word, the good Reap the Spoils word. It really, really helps us out. Jason, what is the next episode of this show about?
Stephen King the game 2. Alan Wake 2.
No. First of all, is Twin Peaks the game too? Twin
Okay.
Peaks 2, the video game. Yes, we're talking about Alan Wake 2. I've already started it. Delilah's already started it.
I'm so excited.
We were talking about how fucking cool and good this game is before the show started recording. Oh my god, I'm so excited to talk about that game. So if you want to, you know, play Alan Wake 2 in preparation for next month's episode, please feel free to do that. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.
Oh, Delilah's not going to go? I wanted to end on, I was going to end on the quip. Never mind. All right, bye everybody.